Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your patience while we resolve those technical issues. I will call this meeting to order for the Township of Puslinch on April 10th, 2024. And we'll start with roll call. Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Councillor Goyda.
Present.
And Councillor Skoulas.
Present.
And this will begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. Whitefox, you have a resolution for confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the April 10th, 2024 agenda and addendum as circulated, and the council approves the additions to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.4, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff. And the council approved the addition of the confidential item 14.3, confidential verbal report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And this is in relation to a potential OLT appeal.
Very good. Move for that. Councillor Goyda, second by Councillor Hurst. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? All right, that's carried. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interests today?
I do.
Councillor Bailey.
Yes, just in regards to item 9.6.2, the rec report, concession stand at Old Marston Ball Diamond. I am a member of the Puslinch Minor Ball Board of Directors, so I will refrain from discussions with respect to that item.
Councillor Bailey, I will likely forget by the time we get there, so I apologize in advance. Any other declaration of pecuniary interest? All right, next, we are on to consent agenda.
That the consent agenda items listed for the April 10th, 2024 council meeting be received for information.
The mover, please. Councillor Bailey, second by Councillor Spose. Any items to be withdrawn? Councillor Bailey?
6.21.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Any,
6.13.
all right, Councillor Bailey? Okay, Councillor Spose?
That's I have 6.13 as well and 6.14.
Four. All right, okay, so we will receive the remainder of those. All in favor? It's carried. All right, Councillor Bailey, you're up first. 6.21.
Thank you. So this 6.21 is a report that was put out by Conservation Halton. We actually saw it on our agenda at the Conservation Halton Board last month. And so it's a really interesting report, which kind of touches on a really bigger concept. So I've kind of written down a few ideas here that I've been looking at since we had this report on the conservation agenda. So it talks about natural asset management. And what that is there's a movement for local governments to expand the concept of asset management planning to go beyond building bridges and buildings to include nature and biodiversity for the valuable services that they provide. And these are called natural assets. Sorry. And I can't remember which conference it was at. It was either the AMO or the Roma conference, but MNAI, which is the Municipal Natural Asset Initiative, they did a workshop and they talked about natural asset planning. And since then, the province has released a regulation that states that by July 2025, municipalities must include natural assets in their asset management plan. So it's up and coming. We do have time to kind of, plan for this, but I think it's good for us to start the conversation now. I think planning for natural assets within Puslinch is a fantastic opportunity. We have a lot of natural components that function every day in our township, and I think we don't know the value of what those are. They provide climate change mitigation. They provide huge benefits to improving mental health. But we don't know kind of how to inventory these natural assets, and we don't know how to put a value on them. So NAI is an organization that kind of has been a big leader in helping municipalities kind of figure out how to deal with natural assets. And then also coordinating with different conservation authorities. And Puslinch is really unique in that we have 3 different watersheds. So what this report highlighted was that it shows us how kind of tricky it's going to be to kind of put a value on what these natural assets are because of the different watersheds in our municipal boundary. But it also shows us the different partners that are available. So if we want to look into project funding or if we want to coordinate information gathering, I think this report speaks a little bit to that. And I think we need to start as council, need to start thinking about the importance of the different assets that we have within Puslinch and how it can be benefiting us and putting a value on it. So I know Courtney's, I put in a question, and so I know staff are gonna be kind of looking into answers through our current consultants. But I was gonna propose that maybe staff could look into connecting with MNAI, who currently do provide expertise. They can guide us in identifying, valuing, accounting for natural assets in our financial planning. They do presentations, and I know that Center Wellington. Center Wellington is actually one of few local municipalities that have done some courses through NAI already. So they might be a really great kind of center to reach out to. So I guess I'm looking for staff to look out to MNAI or reach out to them and see just what kind of guidance they can provide us, and also connect to the 3 different conservation authorities just to see what information they can help us with that. There's going to be a cost, so I guess asking staff to look at what different costs and potentially funding options are available, because there is a lot of funding that you can tap into to do this. And I just have of note, there's a lot of webinars by NAI. There's one this month on how to include natural assets in asset management plans. So I don't know if council can go on and do those, but I think there's a lot for us to be learning, and just looking for council support to kind of go down this big avenue.
Highway?
It's going to be like years and years of planning. And so this will have to come up in our budget, discussions as well. But that's that.
So maybe give your perspective on it and what you feel you need a resolution, or if it's takeaway and report back, or.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I do have a draft motion, and I will, just for council's information, staff have already reached out to the consultant that's helping prepare our development charges bylaw, just to see if they're aware of this legislation and sort of the best way that the township can incorporate it and gather some information to do so. So we've already sort of put those questions out, so we can report back to council with some further information when it's available.
Are you comfortable with that, Councilor?
Yeah, what I'm kind of wanting to push a little more, because I know the legislation's saying that we need to identify natural assets that the municipality owns. But I think we need to be doing more than that. I think we need to be going beyond what's just on the municipal properties and saying like, hey, that wetland down the road is actually, huge stormwater management that we don't even recognize the value of, right? It might not be on municipal property, but it's of value to the community. And if one day that wetland gets destroyed by someone or some big company, then we're gonna have a lot of financial kind of issues down the road. So.
You go on the horseshoe, Council Hurst?
Yeah, interesting concept. Maybe 2 thoughts from my perspective. I think there's an important delineation between properties that are under the remit of the conservation authorities, and then that becomes their responsibility, and we're a key partner in that, versus wholly, wholly responsible. So I think that'd be interesting at some point to have some guidance on that. And I think my second piece is that if there is any, webinars or lessons learned on this, I would appreciate it if township staff could share those. I think, I guess where my head's at is I'm still in an education standpoint as opposed to a doing at this point. Just my 2 cents.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Well, first of all, thanks Councillor Bailey for bringing this up and for sharing the, I'm assuming it was you that did the little video that actually was very helpful. I mean, yeah, I guess I maybe don't necessarily know how to explore the next steps, but I do agree that there's value to it. I think when I watched that video, I thought immediately of Mill Creek and our local Friends of Mill Creek group who have spent years and years and years working to rehabilitate and maintain that cold water stream, and just how it's shown so much resiliency because of those efforts. I do think that there's value in sort of inventorying what those natural assets in the community are and what functions they serve. How we go about doing that is difficult to grasp, but I do think collaborating with our conservation authorities and our consultant for development charters, I think those are good first steps.
Yes, thank you, Council Bailey. I listened to what Councilor Hurst said. I sort of agree with them that we should try to limit our endeavors to anything that the Conservation Authority does not have carriage of. You know, there's a lot of lands that Conservation Authority doesn't have any jurisdiction over simply because there isn't any wetlands or whatever the case may be. But I think from the perspective of that, the township is ripe for gravel pits, and gravel pits wanted to come on. There's all kinds of opportunities to identify these areas in the vicinity of potential gravel pits that we should be thinking about and preserving as heritage for our future generation.
Okay, so I think it's good to identify them, but our asset management plan is a plan to budget for the future for replacement costs. So putting them in the asset management plan and assigning a value, does that mean a monetary value or does that mean an ecological value? Because I'm concerned that if we identify all these natural features and put a monetary value on them, it's going to handicap the municipality for any other core responsibilities we have. We're looking after our roads and bridges and infrastructure because the cost for these environmental features would be exponential. I think that not everything falls in our wheelhouse. I think we could be the force pressure to, ensure that this gets captured properly through the conservation authorities, possibly the upper tiers. Does the county control the mapping for any and natural environment, forests, all of those good things? So I would want to see the upper tiers playing a larger role in this and maybe taking on the responsibility of the protection of these. But initially, I think we need to hear from staff on a direction to go forward with this. But I see this as being more of conservation authorities' responsibility, upper tier, with us as a partner versus us spearheading this. Because I'm concerned about the financial implications handicapping us for our other core responsibilities. So can you read your resolution? We'll see what council wants to do.
That consent agenda item 6.21 be received for information, and the council direct staff to connect with NAI and the conservation authorities and bring back an information report on natural asset planning for council's consideration, including potential funding options.
I'm gonna back up. So this is essentially adding something to the work plan. What's our typical? Well, because this is a new endeavor.
Well, they need to be doing it for 2025. It's
So-
already in works.
Oh,
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think this is, if we have this resolution and this direction from council, we can certainly add it to the work plan. Work plan's on the agenda. And I think, as a starting point, just bringing back some information to better understand what our obligations are and how far that sort of goes in terms of municipal property versus sort of property owned by other agencies or under the jurisdiction of other agencies.
And protections in place for some of the, like, I mean, I think it's fine or great to identify features, especially if they're not identified already. But if they already have protections in place, and I get it, I mean, somebody could haul in 30,000 cubic meters of fill and put it in a wetland and that sucker's gone. Like, that can happen regardless of the protections in place, but having it identified is a priority, and then making sure who has responsibility over those things when you come back with you. Helpful. Are you good?
Yeah, just to tie into that, I think it is a big tiered approach. So there's different levels, and identifying is just the first thing. And then what you do with that is the next step. But I think if we took the Mill Creek example, we don't know the value the Mill Creek is providing to us. If there's a huge storm, the Mill Creek absorbs all that stormwater. And then one day the Mill Creek's not there. You know, what will happen, right? We don't know, kind of. I do worry that some of the legislation that's cut back conservation authorities. Authority, yeah, might not allow them to do some of this work. It might have to be requested and then therefore like a paid a cost to the municipality. I'm not sure. I do know that the staff at Conservation Halton was saying some of this information or some of this work would happen if they did a watershed study. And I don't think that's on the radar for Conservation Halton anyway. I don't know about Upper Grand, or I don't know about Grand River or the other conservation authorities, but a lot of this would happen if they did one of those big studies.
Just move a motion at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Not this one?
No.
Oh. Good. So are you comfortable with? the
I like,
resolution?
yeah, I like the wording in the resolution. Yeah, thank you. So
I'd like to friendly amendment and have this document sent to the other two conservation authorities for their consideration and input.
great, thank you.
Can I get a seconder for that? I'll maybe take you because you're doing friendly amendment.
I should let you.
I'll move or.
Yeah, everybody, Councilor Bailey, second, Councilor Schools. Last chance.
Thank you.
All in favor? Is carried. Finish taking it now. Councilor Hurst, you're up next.
Sure, very briefly, it was item 6.13, a recommendation from the corporation of the town of Coburg to extend the Ontario Heritage Act for the properties that were on the designated list, set to expire January 1, 2025, and stretch that expiry period to January 1, 2030. They're requesting all municipalities support it. I think in principle, I think that it's a good recommendation. From my perspective, maybe one thought on this one is maybe this is something that can be pushed to the Heritage Committee for their May meeting to discuss and report back to council if they see merit in supporting the town of Coburg's recommendation for a regulatory amendment to the Heritage Act.
All right. I mean, I think we have that discretion today because, I mean, ultimately, it just helps this councils work through those designations in a little bit longer time frame, which is easier on the budget. Unless it's not really time sensitive, but if these things work, them all coming in at the same time versus, having to go down to Heritage, come back to us, and timing, it could be months. So I'd be comfortable with council supporting it as is. Councilor Cutter?
Yeah, I'm happy to support that. I mean, like I said at our last meeting, I think in our particular situation, we've done an outstanding job of working through those designations. But even with that, we will still have many to go after that deadline. So I don't think it's a matter of anyone any one municipality, you know, not moving fast enough, it's just strictly a resource issue. I don't think it's a reasonable ask for an extension.
Yes, I raised that, staff, please staff have a motion, for the meeting.
So through you, Mr. Chair, council in the past did support a similar motion by the town of Lincoln. But it wasn't necessarily specifically related to an extension being provided. I think it was more generally around Bill 23 and the impact to heritage. So the motion, the draft motion that staff have prepared and just added to based on Councillor Hurst's comments. That consent agenda item 6.13 be received for information, and whereas council supports the resolution from the town of Cobourg Council regarding a request to amend subsection 2716 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the council directs staff to forward a support resolution accordingly, and that council refer this consent item to the Heritage Advisory Committee for its information.
Thank you, mover, Councillor Hurst, second by Councillor Close. Any comments? All in favor? Thank you. All right, we'll you the last, right? Councillor
Yes,
Close.
so 6.14, this is a resolution from the, township of Amarit, with respect to the province and the federal government providing funding for the city of Toronto, to fund their operating budget shortfall. The city of Toronto has the lowest tax rates in the province of Ontario. And it's appropriate, I think, that all municipalities in the province of Ontario be afforded a better funding to fund their operating budget, not just strictly a large city that has lowest municipal tax rate. So I would move a motion that we support the township of Amherst resolution, and we forward it to the province of Ontario, the appropriate legislative body, and our other municipalities.
All right, it's moved. Need a seconder for that? Councillor Hurst, sorry. Any questions, comments? Yeah, I think it's very appropriate. Years ago, they downloaded Highway 24 to county. And to me, that one clearly connects two cities, and I know the county in the past has advocated for more funding. Or upload that road back to the province. My limited understanding is that roads that connect cities are supposed to be provincial responsibility. Interior roads are municipal, and that one clearly fits the bill in my estimation. I feel maybe we should send this to the county, either the warden or the clerks for information on, because, oh, that's what it was. The OCIF funding has been scaled back, especially at the upper tier. If you look at the reports, we've been okay, and the member municipalities generally are okay, but they've been really scaling back the upper tier. So twofold, they downloaded those roads years ago with a commitment to keep the funding in place. And they've been scaling back the upper tier. At the end of the day, it's one taxpayer. So I would suggest just sending it to even just Warden Lennox for information. And then if he decides to take it to a committee, that's great. If not, at least they're aware of our support of this. So just add Warden Lennox to it. And when you get the phone call, and we're not looking for any action, we just wanted them to be
For
aware.
information, yeah.
Okay, so we had a mover second, right? All in favor? It's carried.
Can we pull another?
Sure, give her,
I thought actually it
well,
was,
kind of, no, yes and no.
yeah, we've
We've already
already,
approved it,
I know.
but what do you want? Which one?
the 6.16 about the public health labs, the water testing. I thought, I'm just trying to look, I thought that was asked by a member of council.
It's under correspondence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we can deal with that later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then don't worry about it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Good, 'cause
Good.
I was gonna be testing my skills on,
How to
Procedure.
procedurally change
which
that.
would have been already helped. All right, so we have no delegations. We have a public meeting, April 11th, 2024, Heritage Designation Process Open House located at 23 Brock Road South at 7 PM, and that's the Wilson Community Center, correct?
Confirming 7 o'clock. Yeah, okay,
And maybe in the future, please put the name of the building in this, just where people go, we won't, thanks, I think just, thanks.
I should have late last time.
All right.
Just a clarification here, so this is basically just walk around boards type of thing, and, or there'll be a presentation.
So through Mr. Chair, our clerk is going to give a presentation. It's the same similar presentation that we provided the last time, but there'll be a few updates related to the heritage permit process. And then following that, there will be an opportunity for some informal conversations with staff.
Will the building department be present to answer any questions regarding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's because the building code and that aspect of the process is unchanged. It's really the changes that we're looking at relate to applicable law and the heritage permit process.
Okay,
Good. All right, next, I believe we're on the finance, 9.2.1. And that's Ms. Hassan.
Good morning, council. This is our 2024 temporary borrowing bylaw report. It's an annual report for council in accordance with section 407 of the Municipal Act. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
Go ahead and read the resolution, please.
The report FIN 2024-008 entitled 2024 temporary borrowing bylaw be received, and the council give 3 readings to bylaw number 2024-032, being a bylaw authorizing external temporary borrowings of 1.5 million in 2024.
You move that, please, Councillor Hurst, Mr. Spillis, questions, comments? All in favor? It's carried. Right. Ms. Brotherston for 8, what are we on, 9.3.1?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with the new proposed noise bylaw, which is being recommended for adoption in coordination with County of Wellington member municipalities. This bylaw addresses issues that are not captured in the existing bylaw. In order for this bylaw to be enforced by OPP, all member municipalities are required to pass the same bylaw. To date, the town of Minto, Township of Belfair-Massa, the Township of Center Wellington, and the Township of Wellington North have adopted the draft bylaw as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you explain to me why the OPP can dictate what our bylaw says and can say?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the OPP requires a consistent penalty and fine section as approved by MAG in order to administer the bylaw. And so that limits the ability of the municipalities to tailor the bylaw.
I know I'm barking up the wrong tree, but it's just odd to me that it's a mandatory, is, I'm sure there's other components of enforcement that the OPP do that isn't standardized across the municipality, so I would, anyways, I'll wait my turn until I start that order. Do you want to read the resolution, please?
Sure. That report ADM 2024-020 entitled repeal and replace of the township noise bylaw be received, and the council give 3 readings to bylaw 6001-24, being a bylaw to regulate, prohibit, and otherwise control noise in the township of Whistler, and to repeal bylaw 5001-05.
You move for that, please, Councillor Bailey and Councillor Goya.
Yeah.
All right, comments, questions?
Yeah, so maybe piggybacking on this. We're sort of being, I don't know,
Pigeonhole.
cookie cutter, yeah, pigeonholed into something. So, I know there was a question, I had one too about, shooting ranges. And, there was one about, or I've noticed in the corporate work plan that we're gonna be doing a special events bylaw, coming forward. So if we have issues with both of those 2 events happening that impact the noise bylaw, how do we, just generally, how do we do a subsection of the noise bylaw that might accommodate both of those 2 events? Can we? Like, can we do a?
So through you, Mr. Chair, and if the clerk has anything else to add, but because this is a countywide bylaw that has to be enforced by an external agency, that agency is not going to look at 5 or 6 separate bylaws and enforce in that particular area. So they have sort of one set of ticket books. They have their fine and penalty section that they're going to rely on across Wellington County. So it's similar to like our parking bylaw, for instance, where that prohibition section is the same, the fine section is the same. There may be differences in the schedules based on locations in each municipality, but in general, the content and the fine section of the bylaws do need to be consistent if we're going to have OPP enforced. If we were to move away from that and enforce through our own bylaw, then that would be different, but the resource implications of that haven't been explored.
Can I interject real quick? So is there potential that OPP could enforce, items 1 through 10? And then if we added items, what's the numbers, 11 to 15, then the responsibility would fall on the municipality to send our bylaw officer out. That's what I was.
Kind of going, yeah.
Anyways, food for thought, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't, yeah, anyways, so.
So through Mr. Chair, I think we also have to keep in mind that when we have like Meg also needs to see it the same. So when we submit this to that agency for approval of our set fines, they're wanting identical bylaws to approve. It's one bylaw number that everyone's approving. So we are limited, and we did have about 2 years worth of discussion on this bylaw with a number of municipalities to sort of find consensus here. It doesn't mean that the township can't regulate other nuisances or things that come up through separate regulatory bylaws. Yeah.
And I guess just for context, and I don't know if you have this information available, but what are our top noise nuisance complaints in West Lynch around?
So through Mr. Chair, I don't have, it probably is just going to be an anecdotal answer. I don't have the stats, but I would say we haven't had many tickets issued. We definitely, the OPP has enforced through an education approach, which I think is in line with the township's general approach. And in comparison to our member municipalities, we are very, very low on noise complaints. It really is not something that I would say is a substantial issue for the township.
What's first?
Yeah, I see the value or the merit in syncing them from an OPP enforcement standpoint. I think my head was very much similar to the mayor's comments around, in addition to what can be enforced by the OPP, is there a potential or provision in the future to add an additional bylaw that would be exclusively enforceable by our compliance and enforcement team within the municipality that would then be beyond the remit of the OPP if they're not going to follow that process? And I think from my standpoint, I'm okay with it as presented, knowing that in the future, if there were amendments to be made, that there's an appropriate process in place. I'm not sure if that's an answerable question per se, but yeah, I think that was really where my head was at.
I think we'd be cautious to, not promise, but suggest there is a process. I think there's a possibility. We don't know. So I just wouldn't want to you and I would want to hang our hat on, yeah, we can add 5 items and bylaw go and enforce it. That may not be the case, but I feel that if something becomes an issue in the community, we have multiple tools in the toolbox to try to address it. I think would be fair. I just don't want to commit to adding bylaw enforcement to a noise or concern, and that maybe not be the possibility, because then we'd have to deviate from the OPP's request, and it will just squash everything. Does that make sense?
Through Mr. Chair, it's council's discretion in line with legislation. If council's desire is to introduce new regulatory bylaws, if there is a specific concern or problem that council is looking to fix. And it doesn't necessarily have to be through amending the noise bylaw. There is precedent for some of the issues that were brought up by council in the questions here. There is precedent for establishing separate regulatory bylaws to deal with those nuisance complaints. It doesn't have to be an amendment to the noise bylaw.
I'm good, thanks.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks. I have the same concerns, so thank you for answering those questions in the email that was provided. I guess just to maybe build on that a little bit. I understand having a consistent bylaw among all municipalities, and maybe that is something that will work great for us, but I don't really know because I don't really know what kind of noise complaints we are receiving. I'm wondering if there's any value, once this is implemented, if there are calls or complaints about noise that don't fit within the parameters of this bylaw, is there a way to kind of track those? And maybe look at it again in the future so that we can determine this, you know, this bylaw is working for these issues, but here are complaints that we're getting that aren't, we don't have any enforcement tools. Maybe we need to look at adding a separate bylaw specific to these items, whether it's firearms or something else entirely, I don't know. But until we start using it, like with most of our bylaws, we don't really know, what's working and what's not. Is there a way to do that in some manner?
So through Mr. Chair, yes, I think we'll have to take it away just, in terms of tracking where the complaints are filed directly with the OPP and understanding what was, how those were addressed, I think is the one piece we'll have to think about how to track. Certainly, we track everything that comes through the township, so we could report on that.
Suppose, just in terms of other regulatory bylaws, for instance, the outdoor shooting facilities, if we do enact a regulatory bylaw, would OPP be able to enforce that, or would we have to rely on our bylaws?
Through Mr. Chair, I don't have an answer to that right now, but we can look into that for sure.
Yeah, so that to me would be important too, because having the OPP come to knock on somebody's door has a little bit more weight than having the bylaws.
Are you concerned about the shooting range?
I'm concerned about the shooting range, for sometime in the future, yes.
Great. I'm going to caution council that, we have legal uses within the township that have been existing for decades. And this is one of the challenges with growth, is you have people move to the community and it doesn't maybe meet the expectations. A core component of rural living arguably could be hunting. And so maybe the operation of all-terrain vehicles and snowmobiles. These are not things you experience in an urban center. So I would have major hesitations to restrict or hold the gun range that is a legal use accountable to noise due to growth around that specific property. Similar, I'll use this crazy example. Maybe when I see horse droppings on the road, maybe we should be then passing a bylaw that you have to clean up after your horse, instead of leaving it on the side of the road. So there's things that come with country living. And they are, my understanding from previous staff investigation, they are a legal use, where that's not necessarily always the case, maybe a grandfathered type situation, so.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you, they are legal use, but there's also has to be a sound limit. There should be a sound limit. Other municipalities have enacted shooting range bylaws that limit the dB at the property line. I have no issues with shooting ranges, but I do have issues when they exceed an appropriate sound level reading at the property. This noise bylaw, for instance, does talk about excessive noise levels at somebody's domicile. And I think that's a little bit too harsh, but certainly I think when you look at dB levels exceeding something that's above and beyond a gravel pit, I think is a little bit excessive. But
It is a conversation for another day. However, I know I can hear that gun club and hunting in the first week in November.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a concern with hunting, I don't have, so that, I do have a concern with,
So it's,
protracted shooting
it's,
at all times of the day.
yeah, we will definitely be on opposite ends of that discussion, but that's definitely not for today.
No, that is not.
But again, it is a legal use, so I'm careful to pick on a person. Okay.
I just have a response question. Typically for our bylaws, they're based on a complaint reaction. Is this the same with OPP responding to noise? Is it just complaint based, or can OPP actually sort of patrol, hear a sound and respond?
Through Mr. Chair, I think OPP relies on complaints as well in order to attend.
No, sir.
Yeah, just a very, very brief request as a follow-up. Can we request that the OPP provide an annual report? I would be curious to see, like, they have to track all this type of stuff. It's whether they choose to share it or not. It's a different thing that, you know, maybe a year into this updated bylaw, I think it would be a prudent exercise to go through and say, how many noise complaints were received by the township? How many were triggered some degree of compliance and enforcement, whether that's corrective action or ultimately fine. And also the same thing with the OPP. And I think at that point, this council and staff can say what's working and what can be improved upon. So I think the bylaw, as it's stated, I'm supportive of, but I think it triggers my thoughts around continuous improvement. And how do we do that? It's through knowledge and data. So that's kind of where my head's going. Again, not for today, but maybe something in the future, like a year from now. Let's go through that process.
Well, the OPP provides that update or quarterly. We can just ask the annual one.
So through Mr. Chair, we have gotten the information from the county in the past because I think they do a lot of facilitation for some of this ticketing. So it would be something fairly easy that I think we could receive from the county at the frequency that council wants.
You give them another opportunity.
No, I think that's a great idea.
All right, all in favor? It's carried. No. All right, next we have the corporate work plan 9.3.2. It's Ms. Whitebox.
Yes, thank you. Through Mr. Chair. This is the annual report that is presenting the proposed corporate work plan for all departments in the township. And this is based on projects that were approved through budget, projects that have been identified by the department heads for council's consideration. And it is mapped out on a schedule over the course of the year to give council an idea of when staff are aiming to start and complete projects. So staff are looking for some feedback if there are any projects to be added or removed or revised from this work plan, as well as we're looking for specific direction related to the county road diet through Aberfoyle and that third-party review that the township had planned for and budgeted for. And I'm happy to answer any questions from council.
All right, you want to read the resolution, please?
That report ADM 2024-021 regarding the proposed 2024 corporate work plan be received, and that the Township of Plymouth Council directs staff to proceed with finalizing the document as presented or as amended and report back to council regarding the progress throughout the course of the year. And that council directs staff to either include or remove the county road diet through Aberfoyle in the 2024 proposed corporate work plan.
Can you move that, please? Councilor Spillis, Councilor Hurst. Questions, comments? Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. The one that flagged me, I mean, everyone is extremely busy coming forward. And not only do we have the current projects, but we've got the carry forward from last year. So the one I sort of flagged was the finance department carry forward to 2024. And I'm just wondering where in that big list of things, the donation policy kind of has been prioritized. I think it's kind of a big hinge on volunteerism within the community. And I just think it's gonna be a really kind of good catalyst to get stuff kind of moving. So I'm just wondering when we can see the donation policy coming forward.
Mrs. Sand?
I will prioritize that. I agree, yeah, so, yeah, that will be prioritized, now that audit is almost over as well, so. 2024.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Quick question, the lobbyist registration, is that a legislative requirement? Or is that something that's come up?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it actually did come up following the last election. So it is a good practice to be very transparent to have that in place. So we were very ambitious, thinking we could sort of roll that out following the election, but certainly before the next municipal election, we're looking to have that process established.
Okay, I found that interesting that we needed one, but anyway, okay. And then just another question, the economic development, Your Town Rising, I see that it's happened and it's finished. Is there opportunity for a follow-up? I just think it was a really interesting presentation, some great ideas came out of it. But I'm thinking there might be now some businesses that might wanna, I don't know, keep the motivation going, get more information out of it. So is there an opportunity for follow-up?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, item number 24 on the work plan, and I'm just gonna double check that number. Talked
number?
about, oh,
I
they're
don't
not
have
numbers,
numbers, no.
apologies, they are numbered in the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
If you-
No.
On the document, there is, the potential, subject to council endorsing this plan, to establish an economic development committee. There's still some uncertainty around whether that'll be a permanent committee or if it's something that will really just continue the momentum coming from Your Town Rising, and then subject to sort of some grant funding opportunities if it's a long-term initiative. But it is there, and the idea was to continue those discussions, reach out to those stakeholders that sort of put their name in that they wanted to participate further.
Okay, good, because I feel like we got some momentum, we need to keep that going, so, great, thank you.
Councilor Hurst?
Forward to backwards, the economic committee, like my perspective is if there's momentum here, like that is a fantastic opportunity to not make it in an ad hoc process. So just my 2 cents. The two comments I had very briefly, is there a recommendation from staff in terms of the syncing of the road diet decision in terms of other competing activities that best sync where it goes? And maybe I didn't have a good handle of that, but I guess that was my one question. To making sure that that's,
If I may,
like, yeah,
the road diet was to be a review of the county's road diet proposal. So we were gonna hire a consultant to review whatever they came up with. So this would be contingent on whatever they start. It's no use us starting it in advance of them because there's nothing there.
fair enough. Okay, I was maybe, that predated maybe my knowledge base there, so I'm fine with that. My only other one is just color coding. This is really good. Like it's a good snapshot. I need a magnifying glass to see it to some degree, but just also identify anything that's been pushed to 2025 over the course of time, color coding wise, I think would be prudent, because I very much view this as a working document. And yeah, because there'll be stuff that starts to get pushed for various reasons. And maybe just add a column 2025 after December or something like that. But really good. That's it.
Councilor Goida?
Yeah, but yeah, this is really good. I needed to put it on my huge other screen to be able to read through it all, but I didn't see anything on it, and I may have just missed it as it relates to the Cards Master Plan. I know that at least I think it's our intention to do like a review of the existing plan in 2024 before we start down the path of a new one next year, but I didn't see it in the work thing.
So through Mr. Chair, I do believe it's on here. And we titled it as a review and update.
Okay,
if
if it's, as long as it's there somewhere, that's good.
and I don't recall if we placed this under, the parks
Under facilities.
or facilities.
Okay. As long as it's there somewhere, that's good. This isn't really something to remove or add, it's just, there's an item on there that's, that just says ongoing, and that's the home industry review. And I was just wondering, like, I know we started down the path of looking at that around the same time we were doing the accessory residential unit. And then it kind of just paused. And so just maybe more like an update, like what's happening.
So through Mr. Chair, we paused it at the end, I believe, of 2022. I believe that's where it paused. We had completed the statutory public engagement that was required, but because of the significant changes, I believe, that came out of some of that feedback, when the process is restarted, we will likely go through another public engagement. And it was paused primarily because of our shift in our planning services, just sort of with hiring some internal staff. And so we're just restarting that and looking at what that will be over the course of this year, hopefully to be finalized by the end of 2020.
And then just in terms of the road diet, I remember when we had the presentation from Don Kudo at council, that I actually think was in our last term of council. I remember the county saying that they were gonna do no further action until either further traffic analysis was complete or the completion of the mid-block interchange was complete. So I still think that there is value in having the road diet looked at by a consultant, but I have no idea realistically when that will be and whether it matters that it remains on the work plan now, or if we re-add it at that time. I'm not sure, but I do think that is an important initiative.
So then through Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we keep it on as a 2025 initiative, just based on the timing of the interchange.
There was a lot of moving parts with that because, when Glenn was here, we didn't have a definitive answer on whether concession 7 would become an MTO road or a county road. Some thought process was that if it became a county road, then maybe we asked to have the remainder of concession 7 assumed as a county road. That's now a truck route around Aberfoyle. We do a road swap, take back Brock, then we can have more control over Brock through Aberfoyle.
Yeah,
And so with all those unknowns around the mid-block and that concession 7,
it didn't make sense.
but now I feel there's a lot of value, knowing that that road, part of concession 7 will become a county road. That we can do that study, but we still need the county to do their portion of the study. So I think staff should engage with the county and say, are you planning on doing your little, was it a little mini roads master plan for Plus Lunch? They have some terminology for it.
They have an actual line item called the EA,
No.
road diet for Aberfoyle. This was, 2 years ago, I assume it's still in there.
So I think they were also waiting for the mid-block to be done, so it'd be good for staff to start those conversations and say, when is that? Are you still planning on doing it? And if the answer is no, you get back to us and we'll request it again.
I know when we did I was part of the group that did the walkabout for the Edward County Organizing last week. And I couldn't believe just standing like on the side of the road, just the trucks going by and the volume and the speed, and I was like, wow, until you're standing right here, you really don't realize. So, without any commitment from the province on getting this bypass done, I think, I don't know, I almost feel like this is something we need to like reignite. Yeah, hearing from the county where they are, it would be.
If we were to be able to get ownership of Brock from Maltby to McLean, we could mark that road, truck prohibition from say certain times of day, start pushing the traffic from Guelph to the Hanlon. Right, so there, but without that control, we can't put restrictions in, so. That and the aggregate on, coming from Victoria Road where to cease, that would be great too, we just saw truck traffic, maybe even, I guess they wouldn't be running right now, that would have been part of what you experienced. Anyways, I think staff engaging on those conversations about that, what do you call it, skill study, road diet, because now, when's the mid-block then, the 25?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe they anticipate construction being wrapped up in December 2024.
Yeah, so it's good timing to start those conversations. I suppose.
Yeah, just piggybacking with the previous conversation. Our resolution, the last council meeting, I think is very apropos because session 7 down to kind of session 1 with the traffic light there would be doing a lot to alleviate the traffic congestion through most.
Traffic light, I thought the light was on Highway 6 South at Leslie, not,
Well, Leslie got session 1. Think the same thing.
yeah, but I thought. Sorry.
Highway 6 and.
Yeah, okay, sorry, the way you said, it, I thought you were asking for a light at Leslie and concession 7, which is 1
Sorry.
mile in.
No, sorry, I meant, you go down to session 7 to concession 1 and you go over there and.
We have the link there. So,
Yeah, I had, 2 other questions on the, work plan and staff sent an email out this morning. One was the, what's the next candidate for repaving of a gravel road? My understanding is report's gonna come through in, May. And the other question was related to the test that was being done on concession 25 of the various different pavement types. I understand from staff that's, coming in 2025.
just be cautious in saying different pavement types. I think they were different treatment types to the gravel road. Maybe one of them was a small section, but.
There was a one small section,
But, just want to get the idea that every option was a pavement.
well,
My phone will explode.
well, it depends, what the outcome comes, and if there's something that lasts 10, 15 years, you know, that'd be great.
I called the director yesterday. I had some inquiries from the public about those tests and he gave me a high level review, call it, and I think it's gonna be a good report and we'll, it's gonna give us options and so I don't want to take any of his, credit, so I'll wait for that report.
So that's all I have.
Okay. I think it's relatively clear on the road diet component.
Yes, I can read what I've captured, if that's helpful.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is there's competing forces at the county. You have an economic development committee that has a vision for obviously economic development, and that could be turning Aberfoyle into a walking or pedestrian friendly environment, but then you have the component of the county or it might even be an obligation to move goods and traffic and people. And those two things tend to run head on. I feel that ownership of that road is probably our most likely chance of success to change the configuration, but if the study and ownership doesn't change, I would suggest that we continue to pressure for different lane configuration there going forward, as well as truck prohibitions. Anyways, there's options still, but let's wait for all these completion of the mid-block and.
The report ADM 2024-021 regarding the proposed 2024 corporate work plan be received. And that the township of Portland direct staff to proceed with finalizing the document as presented and report back to council regarding the progress throughout the year. And that council direct staff to include the county road diet through Aberfoyle review on the 2025 proposed corporate work plan, subject to confirmation from the county on the status of this work.
Please, Mr. Spillis, Mr. Goya, last comments? Mr. Bailey?
Just a question, now that we've bumped this study a few years down the road, is the financial earmark still good enough? Or is that something we need to be talking about at budget time?
So there is an amount in our budget that was approved from previous year that's included in our capital carry forward discretionary reserve. But I don't remember exactly what the amount is. Courtney, did you have the amount?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe it was 20,000 when we last looked.
So does staff think that's still enough?
Probably not, but
If it's a peer review with somebody else's work, I mean, that should be more than, it's not as if he's doing it himself.
it is what it is. It's better just deal with that budget in 25 or something.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be 1% or
Change.
2%, it's something we'll be able to manage.
I know everything is blowing up these days.
Approving this creates the economic development committee with
Through Mr. Chair, yes, it does. And I think what staff would like to just report back on and whether it's a permanent committee or something temporary, just based on the initiatives we have on the bill.
just be aware of that, Councilor Hurst. My only thing is that I'm a little concerned. I think the committee is a good idea, but there's two schools of thought. Some councils I feel just want to deal with everything themselves. Get into having multiple committees, and I'm worried that staff are just gonna be constantly working with committees as we add more committees. So it's being suggested that we add this committee, so I'm making an assumption that you're okay with it. But it's also more work for staff that are working on a lot of things already, but it's a very important topic, so. At some point, I think we need to maybe put the lid on adding more committees, but whether that's now or later, I'll just leave it at that. Because if we have more, keep adding more committees, we're gonna be adding more staff. Maybe. Sure.
Are there any opportunities? Like the county has economic development, right? Like not the like council committee, but resident, is there one with residents or?
I think they have their department
Yeah,
of staff, which has assisted us with a number of our initiatives. But this is something through discussions that would be done at a local level.
okay, so there's no real opportunity for collaborative, multi-community economic development.
It'd be challenging to use our issue, but we need people from somewhere else being on the dev committee and steering things.
Yeah, I get that, but then at least everybody in every municipality is aware of what initiatives are going on in other places and can maybe draw from that too. It's just food for thought.
Through Mr. Chair, I think at this point, what we've envisioned this looking like, is not necessarily a formal advisory committee like we have with the council member chairing it and that sort of thing. I think we're going to have more of an informal committee structure with members of the public. It may not have the same sort of frequency of meetings. I think, given the initiatives we have on the go right now, there's enough work for this committee for a year. And then I think beyond that, we maybe need to reassess.
So what would the difference be between an active resident committee and a BIA, for example? Is what we want, like, essentially, it sounds like what we want is residents to create a BIA.
So through Mr. Chair, from my understanding, a BIA has tax implications. And typically you would see that sort of you would see a BIA created where you have a very high density of commercial use in one spot, but there's tax implications. So we're looking a little bit differently because of how dispersed our downtowns are.
It was nice to see at the Eurotown Rising, a few residents right away put their hand up who wants to help follow through with this and signed up. So I think we'll have some engagement there.
What's yours?
Just maybe a suggestion here, and I like the idea of walk before you run to some degree and not jump way into the deep end, but maybe a path forward would be is to give this 18 months kind of time frame and recommend at that point, is this a go or a no-go? Is the current model working, or does it need to be more refined at that point? And that gives the group time to kind of get their feet and get the rhythm of things. So just maybe a thought.
Or you can take the takeaway.
I think we got to act as leaders to get this thing going off the ground.
For sure.
Otherwise, it's just gonna slowly,
No, yeah.
so I think, I agree we should, do something right now, and I sort of agree with Councilor Hurst. It's okay, let's plant the seed, nurture it, and see what happens.
It's good having a connection with the business community. I mean, we've always had Councilor Gray here, but, and the uptake, I think, it's been received well, so don't wanna put a lid on that by any stretch of the imagination, but, just cognizant of the workload of everybody. All good. Any further comment? Mover a second.
We do.
Where we're at?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right, I believe we're on to 9.3.3. Ms. Henry, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Through you, Mr. Chair, this report, we're seeking council's approval on adding a goal and objective for the Heritage Advisory Committee regarding their 2025 priority properties.
Good resolution. Ms. Henry.
Yeah. The report ADM 2024-022 entitled Heritage Advisory Committee 2022 to 2026 Goals and Objectives Update be received. And the council approve the addition of the 2025 priority properties as a Heritage Advisory Committee goal and objective as presented.
Hey, do you think going forward, we should make the presenter read the recommendations? If they, no, I'm serious. And then, that's their report, and then, they can read the recommendations.
Whatever
I
is
think
your
we'll-
preference.
I think we'll make that change.
Interesting. That's fine with me.
Yeah. Okay, so let's randomly move that, please. And I'm not picking on you, just how we do it at the county. Usually the presenter reads the.
I'm good if it's the same resolution that's there, but if there's no y'all have changed.
No. We'll make sure. Sorry, I had to move around. Who that point to? Mrs. Willis and Secretary, Councilor Bailey. All right, Councilor Bailey, any questions, comments?
Sorry, I'm not clear right now. What is, the new goal is to add the properties to the 2025 year, 2025 properties and prioritize them?
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair, we have like the 100 priority properties that we started with a couple of years ago. And now the committee's down to a total of 72 priority properties. So I think the goal was for our committee to create subcommittees and kind of looking at all those, well, to look at all those properties, decide what we want to prioritize for designation next year come 2025. And then that would be the goal and objective. So we would have, does that make sense?
Sorry, I was under the impression as of January 1st, 2025, we were done designating.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The properties that are on the Township's Heritage Register are removed from under section 27. With that being said, the properties can go from no status to being designated.
So.
But they lose the interim protection from demolition and prescribed events in the meantime. So when they come off the register, we lose protection from demolition and prescribed events. With that being said, you can still choose to designate those properties.
Okay, I didn't know that. Can you tell me what prescribed events means?
Prescribed events are certain planning act applications,
Okay, such as?
like zoning bylaw amendment applications. So if a
Oh.
zoning bylaw amendment application is received, council could not designate that property.
Okay, I'm picturing like an event, like someone's hosting an
Not a
event.
tornado or.
No, like a party.
Weddings.
A wedding, yeah, and I was like, you can't, okay. Okay, that is fantastic. So we're gonna take the remaining properties and prioritize them and then, okay. Awesome.
I'm obviously supportive.
Councilor Gordon?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I did not know that information, so that is actually very helpful. But just to ask one further question of that. So, is a registry, a heritage registry still going to be a thing after 2025? Or is there is it either you're designated or you're not, or is there still an opportunity to add to the registry?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, following January 1st, 2025, for the township, our register will include the designated properties that we have. And then if the committee chooses between now and in the future to add a new property that has not been previously registered, on the register, then we will also have listed properties. Properties that come off in 2025 can't go back under that listed section 27 list until January 1st,
2030.
5 years.
And then what, if they do get relisted, they can only live there for 2 years.
Just a question, what sort of number do you think you'd be able to achieve, in 2025 on the property?
Through Mr. Chair, we've done between 15 to 20 in 2023 and then 15 to 20 in 2024. So probably thinking around that same number again.
Anything further? No? All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Laura. Next one is yours as well.
Through Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to advise council on the upcoming launch of the Community Guide and Business Directory that's coming up in May, and for council to kind of to see the guide as well as our distribution and promotion plan for it.
Can you read the resolution, please? This guy looks awesome.
And through Mr. Chair, that report ADM 2024-023 entitled Launch of Plymouth Community Guide and Business Directory and Associated Programs be received for information.
In move by Councillor Hurst, second Councillor Bailey. All right. Go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Just a question about the businesses that are included in the directory. Can you sort of walk me through how they are there? Have we done an outreach and said, hey, businesses, if you want to be in here, let us know? Or have we driven down the road and counted all of them and added them in? Like, what was the process to get them in the
Yeah,
directory?
through Mr. Chair, we had a couple options. So we've had the business directory sign up now for over 6 months, that any business that wants to be on the directory can sign up on the directory. And then the master list we got of businesses that are included in the directory, we got from the County Economic Development Department. So they kind of have a master list of all the Puslinch businesses. We got that list through them. And then we kind of went through all those businesses, sorted them by industry. And then we also checked all the businesses for zoning compliance. So we wanted to make sure they're all in compliance with zoning, each individual property. And then the ones that were in compliance with their zoning kind of made it onto the list.
So no mail out, it was only through a digital process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did send a mail out directly to the list that we received from the county.
Okay.
And then we also sent a few email blasts for businesses that we had emails for.
Okay.
In addition, we also promoted the program through social media and the township's website.
Right. And so, right, how often are we reissuing a different guide?
And annually.
Annually. Okay, so if a business sees this guide and thinks, oh man, I wish I'd known I was in there, they can get into next year's guide. Okay. I don't think I sent some comments in already, just
So,
yeah, just some
good job.
minor corrections. My other question was just about the different trails. I don't know which it was like near the beginning of the directory. So I just noticed some trails are highlighted, but there's others that exist that aren't labeled. Just wondering how some made the cut and some did not.
Through Mr. Chair, we can add more if they're not all there. Me not knowing everything that's happening in Puslinch, I have the ones that I knew about or kind of found easily, but I'm happy to add more that you guys know of. Like, that's a very easy fix.
I just, yeah, there were a few that I put them in the comments, so. I think that's all. My other one was about the Mountsburg Lakeshore Lookout. So years ago, there actually used to be a tower you could walk up and look out over the lake. And there was a parking lot there, and that does not exist anymore. So I just want to make sure that information, I don't want people driving, thinking they're going to park somewhere and go up a lookout and then have that not exist. So just double checking the Mouseburg one. But anyway, I think it looks amazing. I'm excited for the residents to see it and have this directory.
Mr. Hurst?
Yeah, visually very appealing. I think when I went through it, this looks really good. A couple questions. Can you note any syncing opportunities with this document and any of the other kind of economic development programming that takes place, whether it's here at the county level? It's such a good document. I want to make sure that it's utilized to its fullest extent. So can you speak to that as best you can? What that may look like, realizing that this is like the first crack at it, so the opportunities may present themselves into the future as well.
Through Mr. Chair, thinking like having these documents available at county offices and for anyone to pick up at the county. I was gonna say, we'll be at the library. If there's budget to print more for that, I don't know why we couldn't distribute it at other places. Like the county active team does know about the guide and so I wonder if they could put it there, Justine.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there will also be a digital version of the guide that will be available through the township's website. We'll be utilizing a program called, I believe it's Camillo. And it actually is very cool. It makes it look kind of like a plus magazine online. It has the flipping. So likely that's what we'll use for kind of a further distribution. But we may have some budget for limited additional printing to live at various institutions.
That's good. I think there's honestly, there's stuff out there that I'm like not even remotely aware of in terms of tools. I'm glad to hear that. One is new resident outreach within the community, and that was one that came up at the open house last Wednesday night that I thought was a really good opportunity, because we're getting new residents in the township consistently. One thought would be is how do we get this in the hands of real estate agents that are local, that type of thing, and it really helps promote the local nature. If you're moving to this community, here's a really good resource guide. So just the thought around distribution strategy in that role. I don't need an answer on that one. One that was a bit puzzling, I saw on the one page, there was the various conservation authorities, and I noticed some parks that were outside the confines of the township, and I found that not negative to it. It was just a bit confusing because everything with here initially was within the township, and then we see some information that's beyond the parameters of the boundaries. So I think it was more not positive or negative. It's just something I noticed. So I'll leave that for some internal conversation. And maybe just a couple other ones quickly. Some of the headings, were they synced with other, I guess, tax classifications or how the regional economic development? So like an example, I saw institution, and within there, I'm seeing schools and religious organizations. And to me, I'm like institution, those are quite different. Some are public schools or whistle stop and others are churches. So maybe that was one where if I'm looking at that, could that be parsed out in two headings? And I'm just curious if there was a reason why they were called institutional in the first place.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we kind of used the StatsCan industry data. So we looked at the StatsCan industries, and that's kind of how we filled it out from there. Those are the main headings, is all through those industries, and that's similar with other municipal business guides as well.
And that's fair. I think if there's a process that you're going through, I think the other one was, real estate companies. There's a number of real estate agents in the township. I didn't see a lot around there, and to me, that's like a pretty good opportunity. I'll maybe stop there, but I think overall, like, this is really good. And I think, so last one, I think Councilor Bailey noted it, just the strategy around, because it's an electronic document. If you're doing a printed one, it'd be encouraged to timestamp it to some degree. And then because if it's an electronic and it's kept over the course of time, in theory, if there's a change, in any particular business, new or exiting the sector, that those edits can be made on a somewhat timely basis so that we're not seeing stuff that's grossly out of date. Like, I'm guessing there's gonna be an annual process that you'll go through to update it and what have you. But if one of those businesses indicates that there's been a change made or what have you, what's the process to update that on the somewhat line? Just a question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff could look at reviewing the electronic guide on a quarterly basis. With that being said, because we are relying on some of the county's data and staff are aware that there's sometimes struggles having businesses keep their information up to date. We are reliant on the business having connected with the county.
Totally acceptable. Maybe just one suggestion and I'll stop now. Maybe this is a good task for the economic development group, is to periodically do a quick scan. They know their business locales better than most, right? And just say, hey, there's been a change. And that's a brief process. Just ask them to do that. It gives them a task, but also allows you to share the good work that you guys are doing with them too. Just a thought. I'll stop there. Really good work.
I love it. I love. I think just like reading through it myself, there's all kinds of things that I myself didn't even know were here in the township. And I'm sure that once this is out, there will be other businesses that maybe didn't get included or didn't know about it. But I think we need to start somewhere, and this is amazing. And I think once this does get out, the momentum will build and more groups, more businesses, more everything will want to be part of it. So yes, there's still some tweaks that need to be made. And just maybe some final proofreading through everything, but awesome. Super excited about it.
Councilor Suppose.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed looking through it. I was piggybacking on a conversation in terms of updating the electronic version. I agree that we should be proactively updating it. Certainly quarterly makes sense. I think it's also important, some of these businesses will say, hey, you got my telephone number wrong, or whatever the case may be. And something like that, I would think you want to update a little bit more frequently as soon as you get the information that that's wrong. Put it right away in the electronic copy.
So through Mr. Chair, I think this will be a really good test to see how much we get in, and then staff can look at sort of the resources available to try to keep the online version as up to date as we can. Yeah, and the committee suggestion is excellent to sort of put that into our communities on their plate as well for support.
And you've done a great job, the entire team. I'll tell you, when we first came on the council and we were doing the rebranding from, I always wear this pin, this is the old brand. I was internally, it was a dilemma, or not, but something I was struggling with, because, you know, the historical component and changing the identity of the township. And then you see something like this come out and how awesome it looks. It's like, it was a good decision to get behind, but I'll tell you, at the time I was very hesitant. But, so excellent. I would suggest is reaching out to the conservation authorities for an itemized list of the trails, because just recently I even went on the GRC website. I had a property in mind to go walk, and then I just got curious what it was called. I couldn't remember, and I could not find it for the life of me on the website. I know it's there, and I even Google Street Viewed it, and the gate's there with the signage, but I don't know why they changed something. So even if you were to go look yourself, I don't know if you could find them all. So if we can do that with Halton and Hamilton, then maybe some of them are not accessible to the public anymore. I have no idea, but we can update that. That would be fantastic. So
Just in terms of distribution, something like mini lakes where there's a gate with a can't come in. Will you be sort of dropping off a box, or do you need help delivering in there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that will be sending these through Canada Post.
Okay, so they'll get into everyone's mailbox
Yeah.
there. Okay, great.
Lastly, my family, I went up to the Wellington County Museum to check out the dinosaur exhibit. And I noticed they have a rack and now it's in center Wellington, but they had the lore, they're promoting the lore in different parts of the county. So maybe at a minimum, we could get some of these at the museum because it's already a destination and people would then be willing to travel. So I'm sure you can work, through that. We have more seconder, correct? Moving further before we vote on? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Sorry, this might be should we stop now?
Right.
Why don't we stop now and then we'll get into the sign bylaw after the break? Welcome back, everyone. Now we'll resume our meeting, and I believe next up is 9.3.5. That's our township sign bylaw, first reading. Person.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this presentation is to present the first draft of the proposed township sign bylaw.
You have a resolution, Ms. White Fox?
Now report ADM 2024-024 regarding the first reading and repeal or replacement of the township sign bylaw be received for information, and the council direct staff to report back on the revisions and recommendations made by council at a future meeting.
I'm assuming you'll take the comments submitted by councilors and incorporate them in your next draft. Not sure it's necessary to go line by line today, but maybe each councilor could just hit the high points of their comments and.
So, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, staff have a presentation, about 10 minutes if you'd like.
Right.
If you'd like that, and then following or not, I think our clerk is fine with either or. And then to your point, sort of high level comments and questions.
The clerk can present and then we'll we'll shorten the councilor's time. For the public, it's good for the public to see the presentation. Yeah. She paused, so I thought she was done.
No,
She was trying
I'm sure it needs to be.
Okay, I'll get the next slide. So the township's current sign bylaw was adopted in 1991 and has had 3 amendments since its passing. Staff identified the sign bylaw for review for repeal and replace as part of the 2023 corporate work plan and began preparations of the draft bylaw in the 4th quarter of 2023. Next slide. The township's current sign bylaw is restrictive with respect to permitting signage and lacks education enforcement tools. Some examples of how the current bylaw is restrictive includes limitation on the number of signs and the setback requirement for signs, as well as the prohibition of illuminated and digital signs. The current bylaw also lacked a clear process for requests for variance from the bylaw. Further, the current bylaw has no short form wording and set fines, and staff were not provided delegated authority to remove illegal signs. Next slide. The purpose of the new bylaw is to develop reasonable restrictions to balance commercial interests and community aesthetics. Further, it seeks to develop a clear application process and variance process, as well as provide staff with delegated authority for certain types of variance requests. Finally, it establishes enforcement mechanisms that can be applied fairly and equitably. Next slide. This bylaw was developed through researching local and neighboring municipal bylaws. It establishes the municipal clerk as a sign bylaw administrator and provides for 3 types of signs: prohibited signs, which require approval from council, such as billboards and electronic billboards; permanent signs, which typically require a building permit to be approved and issued by the chief building official; and temporary signs, which do not require a building permit to be issued by the sign administrator or the municipal clerk. Next slide. Today, we'll briefly review the following 9 key sections of the bylaw, just as listed on the slide here. Next slide, definitions. So as previously noted, there are no definitions in the current bylaw. The proposed bylaw will include a definition section, and this section will clearly identify sign types and other unique terms that are used throughout the bylaw. The proposed bylaws transition section identifies that any sign applications in progress but not issued will be subject to the new sign bylaw, and any signs erected without a permit prior to the passage of the bylaw will also be subjected to the new bylaw. Further, it clarifies that variances passed under the previous bylaw shall remain in effect unless the sign is altered, at which point it would be subject to the new bylaw. Finally, any sign lawfully erected under the previous bylaw may remain unless it's altered. With respect to the scope of the bylaw, this bylaw applies to all signs within the township, but would not apply to township-owned properties. Further, the permissions for signs vary based on the property's zoning. As mentioned previously, the municipal clerk is the sign bylaw administrator. Staff are proposing that the sign administrator be provided delegated authority for a number of items related to the administration of this bylaw. A couple of examples pulled from this slide include the creation of forms, guides, guidelines for administration of the bylaw, approval, exemption, issuance, revoking, extending, renewing, amending, or closing sign permits. This slide depicts the proposed variance process for all variances which can be approved by the sign administrator. In the case of variance request, the sign administrator would take in the application and review it against section. I think I jumped. Sorry, staff are further proposing that the sign administrator be provided delegated authority to grant variances from any provisions of the bylaw with the exception of the ones listed on the screen. So section 5.2 unauthorized signs, reductions in distance for digital signs or illuminated signs from a residential use, section 5.8 signs on heritage properties, and then billboard and electronic signs. Next slide. So this slide depicts the proposed variance process for all variances that can be approved by the sign administrator. In this case, the sign administrator would take in the application and review it against section 441C of the bylaw. Following this review, the sign administrator could grant the variance in full, grant the variance in part, or refuse the variance. If the sign administrator were to grant the variance in part or refuse it, the applicant could then appeal to council and council would have the final decision regarding this variance. This slide depicts the proposed variance process for all variances that must be approved by council. In this case, variance request would be submitted to the sign administrator. The sign administrator would prepare the report to council and council could grant the variance in full, in part, or refuse the variance. And there would be no appeal mechanism for a variance request made to council. This slide just quickly depicts the appeal process. So as mentioned in the previous slide, in the case that the applicant appeals a decision by the sign administrator, it must be submitted within 21 days of refusal. And then council would have the opportunity to grant the variance in full, in part, or refuse the variance. And again, there's no appeal mechanism for variance request from the council.
I just pause you there quick. Is it 21 days or 21 business days?
We have 21 days, but we could look at 21 business days.
Generally, when we have restrictions like that, do we have it as business days or do we have it as?
Typically with legislative timelines, it's calendar days rather than business days.
They're just consistent on.
So this slide just lists out our general provision section, so I'll just give a couple highlights. So 5.1 is prohibitions. There's 21 prohibitions listed in the bylaw, most relating to obtaining a permit and location, luminescence and maintenance. Section 5.2 unauthorized signs. There are 18 unauthorized signs. A couple examples include the billboard, electronic billboard, illuminated signs in excess of the permitted number of nits, obscene signs, etc. Signs not requiring a permit. There are 9 sign types here. A couple examples, incidental signs or murals. 5.32 is a section under this, and it's signs that do not require a permit but have regulations. So we'll look at that a little bit later. Section 5.5 is the issuance requirements. This section speaks to requirements around public road allowances, real estate signs, directional signs, etc. Section 5.8 looks at heritage property, so signs have to comply with the Ontario Heritage Act and cannot obstruct the Heritage Attribute. Section 5.9 talks about site triangles and driver visibility. So it speaks to setback requirements related to those. And then sign design, section 510, speaks to, our Pacific design guidelines. And that mostly applies to ground signs in Morrison and Aberfoyle. Sections 6.0 and 6.3 talk about illuminated signs and digital signs. With illuminated signs, regulations regarding illuminated signs are in table 6.1. And key provisions that are included in this section is a requirement for 30 meters setback from a residential use. And then the permitted luminescence at various times of day. So the number of nits that would be allowed during daytime versus nighttime. With digital signs, again, the regulations regarding this are in section table 6.3. And with digital signs, again, they have to be set back 30 meters from a residential use, would not be permitted on a heritage property, and can only be ground fascia or wall signs and menu boards. With respect to billboard signs and electronic billboard signs, staff are proposing the billboard signs, electronic billboard signs be approved by council through the variance process outlined earlier in this presentation. Staff have prepared a draft billboard guide for council's consideration attached to this report. The guide is purposely not mentioned in the bylaw to provide flexibility with making amendments as required. Staff are seeking council's feedback with respect to the areas where council may be supportive of seeing billboard signs, as well as direction relating to regulations of the billboards. Staff have marked these areas in red in the draft guide. Staff, permanent signs, so staff are proposing 6 types of permanent signs that have been summarized and permitted by the zoning per table 6.4. These 6 types of signs included are ground, fascia or wall signs, awnings, projecting signs, menu and pre-menu, and directional signs. There's also the temporary signs, so staff are proposing 14 types of temporary signs. A few examples of these would be garage sale signs, real estate signs, seasonal farm produce signs, to name a few. And table 7.0 summarizes the temporary signs that are permitted by zone and sets out the detailed regulation for each of the temporary signs. So timeline next up. So the first draft was presented to council at this meeting. Staff will be running an engaged Whistler engagement opportunity from April 19th until May 17th. And staff will circulate this engagement opportunity to Whistler businesses via email directly. We'll also share the engagement on the town's website and through social media. The second draft of the bylaw incorporating recommendations from this council meeting and from the engagement will be presented for council's consideration at the June 12th meeting. And then the third draft of the bylaw incorporating any of council's recommendations will be brought to the July 10th, 2024 council meeting.
Thank you. Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. Maybe just kind of an overarching clarification. It appears that a lot of the sign permissions are based on the zoning of properties. Can you just kind of highlight what that is? Like a residential versus a commercial versus an industrial. So the intentions.
Sure. By having the signs, permissions granted based on the zoning, it provides the opportunity to provide greater flexibility or increased signage for our commercial and industrial properties, while providing some permissions with residential, but limiting the number of signs that we would see in those areas. So signs that we might see related to business in a residential area would be around maybe a home industry or home business. But if we see stricter regulations related to those signs, then you might see in the commercial or industrial zone.
Okay, good. Just about the heritage property, it said no digital signs allowed. I think this is in 6.2. On the heritage property or just on the building? Just looking for clarification on what if a heritage property is a commercial, has a commercial business? How do they get a sign?
They would be able to go through the sign variance process and then that realistically also through the heritage permit process, where council would be able to look at what's being requested and then allow permissions. But as of right, they would not be permitted to just get a sign.
So there is a process for them to apply to have it. It's not a no. Okay. I didn't see any mention of color of illumination. We have an example out front, red on black, which I find hard to read. Are there any restrictions or any recommendations on what, and I'm getting caught up in all the different definitions of the different types of signs, but a digital sign? Are there recommendations on sort of ease of readability, I guess?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the bylaw doesn't contemplate regulating, what a business might choose for their sign to be in terms of if they would want to have black on red versus, a different color palette. I don't really speak to that.
Yeah, okay. And I just want, again, just an overarching, you mentioned how design guidelines are integrated into the bylaw. So that's just in our urban corridor, is that correct? And what is sort of the guidelines? Are there restrictions in that area based on the guidelines?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's something that I would have to look at specifically, and I could bring back, in sort of the next version of the bylaw.
Okay. I just know that the, again, this Your Town Rising had some really great suggestions on signage, so you wouldn't want them conflicting. Anyway, one saying, hey, you should do this, and the other one saying, well, you can't limit this. So I just wondered how that all fit in. I found that the definitions for all the different signs got really complicated. Wondering, can we put in some visual examples of what those definitions are? I don't know if you don't put it in the bylaw, but just for us to kind of know what we're talking about when we're having discussions, that would be great.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, just to piggyback in Councilor Bailey's comments, I think my three were, one is just some visual examples as part of the guidance document, not specifically in the bylaw, but I thought what was well done is that decision tree and how it was presented. To me, that's very clear. You're either within the realm of getting approved, or if it's outside of that realm, there's appropriate process. But I would say similar to our site alteration bylaw, that decision tree process, but then also a guidance document that supports, and I'll call it layman terms with some visual examples, I think would be quite helpful after the consultation process is done. My other one that I think I was looking for some clarity on would be, specifically coming out of last week's meeting made me think a lot of what does the sign bylaw mean for businesses in Aberfoyle and Morriston? And I think I'd be very sensitive that we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to promote their business in a manner that isn't restrictive, but also we need to focus on public safety and in the aesthetic value that exists within those two communities. So I think that's something I would be curious to see as part of the public consultation. But beyond that, I think this is a good start. It's moving things forward. So those are my comments.
Mr. Quinn?
I had a question about, just understanding how properties that are along either county roads or provincial highways, is there different criteria for, like, for instance, if someone were to want to put a billboard up on private property that faces the 401, do we need to get special permissions from the MTO? And same thing with the county?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so there are permitting processes for MTO and for county roads, so they would require a permit from that authority before they could receive the permit from ourselves. So 2 permits would be required.
And is this bylaw consistent with the restrictions and parameters in those bylaws?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that was part of the review for this bylaw, so you'll see some of the information around billboards mirrors the requirements that the MTO would have from billboards.
Okay, that sounds good. In terms of, one of the things in red was sort of preferred locations of billboards.
Is there, are we separating out illuminated billboards from like just a large sign that isn't illuminated? Are we categorizing them the same? I guess the reason I'm asking that is when I visualize like an illuminated billboard, I would visualize the best locations or the most appropriate locations for those in either our commercial or industrial zone or along either the 401 or 506. I don't necessarily know that I would feel it would be super appropriate out in the country on a back road somewhere. But if it was a non-illuminated billboard, I think maybe there'd be a little bit more flexibility for that. If it's just a sign in a field somewhere, that's different than like this big one thing and the blackness of the name. So I guess maybe just my feedback on that is when looking at considerations for feedback, for billboards, I feel as though non-illuminated billboards should maybe have some more flexibility than illuminated ones. That's a long way of saying that. There was a comment in the guide, the billboard guide, that's not in red, but it says, no part of a billboard or electronic billboard sign shall be closer than 400 meters from the county or provincial highway. And that didn't seem consistent with the rest of the guide. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about that. Page. This is page 181 of the agenda. See it?
I'll have to take that away.
Okay, sure, that's fair. And then really, I'm just going through my notes as I'm reading through. Just in terms of enforcement, so our normal process for enforcement of bylaw is complaint driven only. Will that be, is it expected to be the same for this one? So things like, so with the, again, back to the billboards, for illuminated signs, there's regulated hours that they're allowed to be lit and regulated brightness that they're allowed to be lit. And I'm just wondering, I'm not sure that if they're not following those parameters, necessarily anyone would notice and complain. Is that a concern, or is there needed to be a more active enforcement, sort of like strategy? Yeah. To look at that, is that a concern or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, the township's approach to bylaw enforcement is complaint based. I believe that we would want to maintain that with this bylaw. If you had a sign that was not in compliance, but we hadn't received a complaint about it, I don't think we have the capacity to.
And that's fine, I just,
force.
that's fine. And then the only other comment I wanted to say is, again, sorry, this is in the guide, it talks about a design impact study may be required, but it doesn't really talk in the bylaw about what the design impact assessment is. I think there's like a chart or something, but it's not in the wording of the.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can take a look at it. It might be covered by like additional documentation that may be required, but we can look at specifically. Okay.
Otherwise, that's all my comments.
Councilor Spose?
Let's start to piggyback on some of the comments made by the other councilors. Council Hurst made the comment with respect to the flow chart. I fully support the flow chart, along with pictographs or having something saying that you want this type of sign, this is the process you go through. You want that type of sign, this is the process you go through. I think with the sort of guidelines that really would help simplify the process. The other comment made was location of electronic billboard signs. I would support that along the 401 only, not in the middle of the our rural area. Similar like a Snyder sign would be appropriate. I would also support a digital sign that's just advertising a particular commercial property, like for instance, Brian's Auctions. They have that for themselves. I would support that, but a rolling billboard where it has multiple different companies advertising, I would not support that. I agree with Councilor Goyda that I think a static billboard is less intrusive than electronic or digital billboard. I think we can have a little bit more relaxation in terms of location from street lines and that sort of thing. With respect to Your Town Rising, there are some things in here I know are probably taken from larger municipalities, and I know, for instance, they would not work. But for instance, we talk about gotta be so many distance behind a street line for a banner sign. Well, we've got narrow sidewalks, so you've got to work the way we've got the numbers. Or a projection sign, they say should be no more than 7 meters away from a property building. Well, if you take a look downtown, the barber shop is pretty narrow. So you don't want people to do that, and we want that sort of signage in that location. So that's sort of a consistent comments I made along the line, along those lines. The other thing is the failure to pay type of thing. We use soft wording may type of thing. I think it should be more definite. It should be will or shall instead of may. Like that, it says upon conviction. This bylaw, the authority as amended, may be collected. Fines may be collected. Well, I think we should say will be collected. Just outright saying you're going to break the bylaw, you're going to pay. Period. So those are the general type comments. I made a lot of other different ones, but staff can look at that.
Thank you. The heritage properties, is there a grandfathering? I know one we're considering designating up here. And my concern is if this goes through that retroactively, they'll have to apply. So as long as that's not the case. And I agree that if, if there's a change of use, if it's been converted into a doctor's office or this or that, then, want to support it. But I wonder if I understand you want to have a prohibition on it, but I'd like it to be a little clearer that if you're reading it, that it says, prohibited unless you go through the minor variance or the variance process. Because people may just get to the prohibited part and stop. Right? So having just some language in there that says there isn't a path for them, it just doesn't guarantee, and it has to go to council. I agree with Councilor Spillis. I don't see value in having billboards that run ads. I don't think they'll bring much value to our community. They'll support businesses outside of our community as people are traveling through, and then we deal with the impacts. I don't feel they'll give us any taxation value. So beyond benefiting the host from a revenue perspective, we're just gonna see negative components other than maybe the 401. But even I don't know for sure, but those 2 giant billboards went up at the en route, and then post installation, they've been having meetings with some community groups. So I would even be a little cautious of how well those are even received. So, again, I haven't been contacted formally. I believe I saw them on the Facebook groups or something, and they're mad. I would like to see in here, and this might not float, but a prohibition of election signs out front of municipal property. And I recognize that 2 of our facilities are on county roads. However, once we have it in place, and we discuss maybe the transition of Brock to the township, have it in place, and then we formally request the county to adopt that component into their sign bylaw. I think, I just don't think it's appropriate. Nobody here at this table did it. I don't think it's appropriate that you're driving into a polling station and see one candidate signs or something, and I mean, generally the electorate, which one's the people? Electorate. They may judge you on their own, but if we put it in here.
Now,
um,
polling station or municipal property?
Should be both.
Yeah.
Should be both. Well, municipal property would cover both.
No,
I would say
Because the
both.
other polling station was not a municipal property, but
Right.
essentially.
So a prescribed distance of, you know, something reasonable. Can you speak to me how a farm lane sales sign would fit into this? And I wrote, is it under 5.3 where it's permitted? But what I'm thinking is that the eggs, the honey, the firewood, how big of a sign and what would they be allowed, if any, as a farm lane sales sign?
So the seasonal farm produce sign is in accordance with section 715.
So it's seasonal though, it can't be permanent, they have to remove it. So if somebody wants to put up, so if I want to sell firewood year round from my farm, is there a process like?
In what season?
Take it down.
So
Yeah.
I believe a permit isn't required for this, so you just have to make sure that you're following the regulations.
I wanna give the opportunity to farmers. Generally what I'm seeing is it's the children of farmers that are selling certain things, and I wanna, anyways, I wanna enable that as much as possible without jeopardizing the bylaw, so I'll just leave you for that. Not eliminated, not. I think that's all I have. Yeah. Good enough for the first draft? Anything you need more clarity on?
I don't think so. I just have a question. In red, you've asked us for some feedback for location of billboards, electronic billboard signs. And you put Milton example, Hamilton example, Center Wellington example. Are those somewhere I can look at, or they're just ones staff knows about?
Yeah, they're, through you, Mr. Chair, they're ones that staff knew about and included, but we can certainly provide more information if desired. But I think we have some direction that we can bring back, more options with the next draft.
Yeah, because I like Councillor Goyda's distinction between electronic versus non-electronic. I think that's important.
I guess my last thing too is on the commercial side of things, I believe Councilor Spilsman mentioned it, is signs facing the road. I view them different than, you know, perpendicular, so I want to support the commercial side of things. We had one company down here apply because they carry different brands, and you know, they need 4 or 5 specific signs. So I feel it's appropriate that there's a process for them, and you guys can decide how that is. I just don't want to make it too difficult, but the luminescence is a big one for me. You have a sign inside your building that the light doesn't reach the neighbor's house, then we're probably in good shape, that kind of thing. So. All right, anything further? So we move for a
I
second.
don't think we do yet. Do you want me to read resolution? Or
Sure,
everyone?
it's short.
Yeah.
I think you read it all. Well, yeah.
So it's that report ADM 2024-024 regarding the repeal and replacement of the township sign bylaw be received, and the council direct staff to report back with the revisions and recommendations made by council at a future meeting.
Thank you. Mover for that, please. Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Spillis, all in favor? That's carried. All right, we're on to recreation. Miss Hassan.
Hello, council. This is just our final reporting on the pilot program results related to the roller skating free drop-in time at the Orc Rink. We've recommended that the free drop-in schedule that's been in place this season continue to be in place for 2024 as well. I'd be happy, Mike is also on the call to answer any of council's questions and myself.
That report REC 2024-001 entitled Roller Skating Free Drop-In Time at the Orc Rink. Final pilot program results be received. And that the following free drop-in schedule as noted in the report at the Orc Rink continue to remain in place.
All right, get a move for that, Councilor Bailey, Councilors, Goida? Questions, comments?
Just comment, I guess I'm really happy to see this, schedule there. I'm really glad to see the inline shinny, because I know we had some, requests for that, so it was great that we could integrate that in. Thanks to the team that did the tracking, and I know that was a little bit extra for staff to do to try to track the numbers. So I think it was a pretty successful pilot project that got us some information and then a schedule. Just so council knows, I did bring this up at the youth committee meeting on Monday night, and no one had any concerns or issues with it. So essentially they were in favor of the schedule. So this is great. Thank you.
No questions. Good.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good that we have, now something in place that was initiated by our youth committee, and I think it's great for them. It should be encouraging for them to see that their efforts are something that's becoming a little bit more permanent. And I think even though maybe some of the numbers, attendance numbers have started out low, just with that presentation with Your Town Rising, that's exactly what they said. That's how you have to start, with just the small numbers and let it go. So, yeah, I think it's great.
That's why I'm in favor. It's a good thing to have, things that our youth can do, something that can have fun as well. And no concerns whatsoever.
Yeah,
That's gonna go too.
yeah.
I'm not gonna play against that 8-year-old. They're cheap.
They cheat.
It's the only way adults can be kids, is we need to cheat. No, it is great that we endorse this from the youth committee, because, you know, nobody wants to be on a committee that, you know, they advocate for things and then you don't see results. So it was a great first step, and look forward to working with them in the future and have a good use for the facility and support the numbers going up. So, all in favor for that one? It's carried. All right, next is report 2024-02. And that's Mr. Fowler, I believe.
Mary.
Or Mary, whoever wants to take the lead.
Okay, I can take the lead and then Mr. Fowler can add to it. This just came out of the delegation from Puss Lynch Minor Baseball with staff's analysis on some of the items that council raised at the meeting. It is all outlined in the report, and I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions regarding this report.
All right, thoughts on this, Councilor Hurst?
I'm good.
Councilor Bowman?
Yeah, I support allowing the renters, all renters to use it and to have access to the concession. And I support not charging anything extra, at least for this year, see how it goes. In terms of the fridge, so I have to say, I haven't been in there myself, so I don't really understand how much space is available, but would it be unreasonable to have the fridge in there and just have a lock on it? Or just to have the fridge in there and let people use it, like fill it up and unfill it at the end of their use? I don't see that the energy cost would be that substantial to not allow it. I think the risk is on Puss Lynch Minor Ball. If it breaks or whatever, it's on them anyway. I think of our cottage. It has no heat. We unplug it in the winter. It's been fine. But I don't know. I would like to be able to see us be a little bit more flexible to use it.
Councilor Schwartz?
Yeah, that's my thoughts as well, but I think, Puss Lynch might have all offered to put a fridge in at their own cost and offered to lock it up type of thing. And I don't see that being a big concern that they take carriage of it. You know, the energy cost is, you know, you look at the website for energy efficient bridges, $180 a year, and this fridge won't be used for a full year type of thing, a nominal amount. So if the minor league baseball wants to put in their own fridge and lock it up, that's fine. Perhaps get some feedback, some other clubs want to have a fridge, maybe we should reconsider opening up later on, but for the time being, the awkward, the lock it, fine, it's good with me.
Yeah, I am on the same page. I feel we can permit it and they just need to have the understanding that we're not going to deal with concerns around. They had beverage containers in there and they went missing. Then empty it each week, but I don't see a problem. Or if staff are comfortable allowing them to lock the fridge, I think we should leave that with staff on whether that would be a permission. We do have our own fridge at the Orc, the basketball court. There's a fridge there and it's not locked and it's used by many different community groups. And I'm sure there's been times where there's been maybe a mess left in it and staff haven't cleaned it, but as a general statement, I think it's been working fine. So I would be supportive of allowing them to have a fridge.
Just a question, is that fridge that you mentioned, is that a township fridge or association fridge or somebody contributed?
I'm not sure. Mr. Fowler? You know?
Mr. Chair, are you referring to the Orc fridge?
Yeah, the one in the little room off the basketball court.
Yes, through you. That fridge is owned by the township, maintained by the township, and it is open and free to use for any renters or party room renters.
Yeah, so on that basis, I don't know if we want to open it up to have a fridge there for everybody's use or just leave it at the top for the time being. But Postage Minor to use it and then see if there's a greater demand, there is, and we can address it later on.
I would suggest that we permit them to have the fridge and leave it to the organization. Where I'm going, what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that if they encounter problems with theft, damage, then they request to the director that they install a lock and then possibly provide a key to that lock to the director or the township, whatever you want to call it. So I would start at it's open to everyone. They start to have concerns and they bring it to the attention of the director and then work through a solution of locking it. But one thing I don't want is a fridge that's got a lock on it that we can't get into. Maybe it needs to be something, maybe it quits and it stinks, or I don't know. So if they're gonna lock it, I'd like them to provide the key. At least maybe even a hidden spot in the booth that only a few people know kind of thing, but.
Just get a code.
Yeah, right, so.
Well, sir, are you saying that the Postage Minor baseball would be willing to provide a fridge for use by everybody?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't hear that.
I think so. I don't know. Do you think so?
They'd just be happy with a fridge in there. And I don't know how many other community groups.
Everybody that uses it is baseball players, so
Yeah.
we have something in common and.
Not a lot of.
It's not as the same as say providing a fridge at the PCC work, so it's just massive different groups from all over. It's generally local people using it, so I feel like it would be okay. And if they have to lock it, we just do it, require a motion.
So through Mr. Chair, I think it's, the question that staff had is sort of along the same line of discussion we're having. If this is a donation to the township to be used sort of by all renters, that rent the field, in which case it wouldn't be a locked fridge, it would be there for the use. Particularly if the concession stand is being included in the rental of the field, it would make sense that it wouldn't be an exclusive thing for one particular community group. So I think we would appreciate some direction in that regard, and maybe there needs to be a further discussion with Postage Minor Ball if that's what they had in mind, sort of like a donation, versus placing their own equipment in the building for their exclusive use.
I can make a motion that staff be requested to contact Postage Minor Soccer with respect for Minor Ball for a donation of fridge to be used by all parties renting the facility. And to report that.
Councilor Hurst seconds it. I think that's a good starting spot, and if it's not working out, then they can come back and delegate and ask that it not be a communal fridge, because our donation is the power. And then thus, that's a community component, so the payback is other people get access to it. I think it's win-win.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I guess the further clarification, and I think what we've heard is that in general, the use of the concession stand can be included with the rental. So that's all being approved, and it's just this one piece around the bridge.
I feel like the fridge can be approved as long as softball agrees to it being a communal fridge. So as long as they agree, then they don't, it doesn't need to come back to us. Do you feel it needs to come back to us?
No,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Oh, Mr. Fowler?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like some clarification from council in regard to, I understand the fridge is being donated, but moving into the future, is this something the township will be taking responsibility of for replacement? Is this an asset that will have to be included, or will it continue to be these, basically the public groups that will continue to replace the fridge or any other appliances as needed?
Public groups, as far as I'm concerned.
I would think they bought it, installed it, so it's up to them to look after.
Yeah, I think the public groups.
Is there, sorry,
Yeah,
is there concern with it being, if it's considered a donation? That once it's donated to the township then owns it? Is that a concern?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think there would have to be further discussion with Portland Minor Ball, perhaps around if something breaks or sort of those maintenance obligations with something. I think we do need to have that discussion with them about what they're willing to sort of continue to do. I think that it's fair if they're donating something that others have the use of, what does that look like? And I think that that can certainly form part of the discussion. But what I'm hearing is that it's not necessarily something the township's going to replace if it breaks
Or maintain?
or maintain.
And if there's a maintenance or does council care if they want to lock it up then? They want to lock up their own fridge?
To me, I look at it the same as we're allowing them to put storage lockers with their own lock on it. The fridge to me is almost just like an extension of that, but
No, I agree.
I also don't know how many other user groups are renting that space and what their demand for using a fridge is, so. Is that, once a week? Is that once a month? I have no idea. I'm
It
not.
could be a couple times a year, because from what I've seen back there, there's 2-3 tournaments a year. So maybe they throw in some water or something for the teams, because, it's all day, all weekend kind of thing, but it's definitely not needed by other groups every rental, as far as my estimation. So I just don't think it needs to come back to us if Minor Ball says, well, we prefer to lock it. Well, then that's fine, but maybe our preferential option is it's accessible to all groups, but if that's a concern, then I would be fine with them locking it as well. Any thoughts?
I'm good with that.
Yeah. We'll just leave it with you guys to work it out. So,
I think through you, Mr. Chair, I think we have what we need to get started, and if anything comes up, we can certainly bring it back if we need to.
Okay. We need to move on to second.
So I've sort of put, Councilor Spillis's motion in the main motion. A report REC 2024-002 entitled Concession Stand at Old Morrison Baseball Diamond be received. And that council directs staff to permit the use of the concession stand with the rental of the field at no additional cost. And that staff be requested to contact Portland Minor Ball regarding whether Portland Minor Ball is willing to donate the fridge to the concession stand for the use of all renters.
I'm gonna throw a wrench into this. Can we make it slightly more generic that concession stands are included with the rentals? The only reason why I say that is, at Meadows, there's the identical situation where the concession stand is opened for storage of the different leagues, baseball equipment. And then once a year, maybe twice a year, they have an end of year tournament it'd be nice to maybe utilize that to set up some tables out of the sun. So that way it would prevent them having to come back and say, well, we have permission in Morriston. We just want to replicate that in Meadows. Oh, Mr. Fowler, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just for clarification also, I'm not sure if it's beneficial to include all concession stands, as the concession stand at Aberfoyle is currently not available for any public access due to the Optimus storage facilities in there.
Right. You know what, I'll leave it alone for now. It's now if memory serves me right, the door gate, or I don't know, it's not a door because it's at bar height, but the thing that folds up. At Meadows, it's bolted shut, right? So it's not easily opened. So I think for now, we're good the way it is. If something changes on the way that thing opens, very technical terms. Okay. I get a seconder? Counselor, go ahead. All right, all in favor? That's carried. All right, welcome back, Counselor Bailey. Next, we have the Sunshine expansion groundwater monitoring report. You have a resolution for that, Ms. Mike Fox?
Yes, that correspondence item 10.1 regarding the 2023 Sunshine expansion, groundwater monitoring report and peer review be received for information.
Okay, move for that, please. Counselor Bailey, Counselor Hurst, any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. Next one's 10.2. There's gonna be some discussion around this one. This might budget resolution.
That correspondence item 10.2 regarding the Asabo Bayfield Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee recommendation phase out of free water well testing be received.
You gonna move for that, please? Counselor Bailey, can you suppose comments? Counselor Bailey, you had some items?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to support sort of the consent item that was related to this, but I think it's of concern considering all of our residents are on well water and we often, you're supposed to take your little samples and go get them tested every year. And I think one of the labs they're talking about closing is Hamilton, which I think is where all of our testing goes to in this area. So I think it's a bit of a concern that they're looking to close the labs.
Anybody else?
I would just share that concern. I think especially in a municipality that's reliant on well water as opposed to municipal water. Any opportunity to get accurate data. We saw the situation that we encountered last summer.
Yeah.
This just is like, we need to voice our opinion on this one.
Yeah, I agree that situation last year. Really sort of shone a light on the importance of having the water tested, and I think just our proximity to Highway 6, the 401, our reliance on private wells, I think it's imperative that we have it. I know when we had the restaurant, we were required to test our water through a private lab. It's over $100 every month to do it, so that's a huge barrier, and I think having free access to water testing is super important, so.
Mr. Spose?
Yes, this was brought up at the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee meeting on March the 28th. And it came through the Sonoma Bayfield Valley Source Protection Committee. And I put a motion at the Source Protection Committee that everybody agreed with, and staff were going to do anyway. What they intend to do is write a letter as well to the province. And what they're also going to do is ask each of the municipalities in the region to support their letter type of thing. So we can do it both ways. We can do one motion from ourselves and do a second one where their letter comes through. I've given staff a suggested motion for us to do it now, and then we can follow up later on with supporting the Vancouver Constitution.
Let's do it both. What do you have?
Sure. The correspondence item 10.2 regarding the Asable Bayfield Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee recommendation phase out of free water while testing be received. And whereas the Township of Plisslinch is in receipt of the February 26, 2024 letter from the Asable Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee via the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee meeting of March 28, 2024, to Honorable Lisa Thompson, Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, concerned Public Health Ontario's recommended phase out of free well water testing. And whereas the residents of the township does not have access to a municipal water supply and rely exclusively on well water, whereas the phasing of free well water testing will impose an additional barrier to ensure safe drinking water when it is already difficult to encourage residents to test their water. Be it resolved that the Township of Plisslinch supports the letter from the Asable Bayfield Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee to Minister Lisa Thompson and request staff to send a similar letter of concern to Minister Lisa Thompson, Honorable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, Honorable Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, all Ontario municipalities and FEMA.
All right, if you're ready. Moved. Seconded by Councilor Hurst. Questions or comments on that? Anybody?
I think that sounds good.
That's good. Okay, all in favor? All right, that's carried. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, so next one is 10.3. This is the regarding the residential development monitoring. Okay, this is just for information. Pretty sure this is the report that we're going to see annually at the county. It's not originally mandated with all the changes that were going on through planning legislation from the province. The county wanted to know where they were at to meet the imposed growth deadlines or growth targets for 2041, 2051. So the county has a adequate supply to reach 2041, and I believe they're still working to get the final numbers to see if they comply with the legislative requirements for 2051. This is all good news. Just means that there's not this massive urgency to, bring on more land, which is likely farmland, and you've seen the pressures up in central Wellington. However, the one question I did ask, want to see the answer to this is that if the county has enough housing supply to meet its 2041 requirements, will that limit any opportunities that could be afforded to Plisslinch, because that may be deemed a surplus? And the initial response was that they recognize that Plisslinch needs its own growth. So to me, that's good news. It wasn't a solid no. So we'll stay tuned, because one of the things I've been advocating for is that one severance post 2005. That's a big barrier for people down here in Plisslinch. And then I was worried that having residential supply at 2041, the argument we made, well, we don't need to move that date, but this council has endorsed. I want it abolished, but I believe the council resolution was removed, or at least moved to a certain date as a reset. And I was a little nervous when I read this report that, oh, we might not get that date, but it's sounding like that's not going to be the case. They're recognizing that Plisslinch has its unique, well, we just spoke about it all. Everybody's on private wells. We don't have municipal services, and we need growth to maintain their sustainability. So that's all good news. And I believe they're getting close in the MCR to dealing with the rural component, which will then bring us the answers. But I'll ask Aldo tomorrow after our planning meeting how long we'll be waiting on the rural component of the MCR. So I kind of hijacked that, but I don't know who else wants to speak to it. Are you going to speak to it? So we're just going to receive that for information and get it first. Okay, we're going to receive it. Councillor Goya, Councillor Spose. Good. Ms. Spose.
Yeah, I just asked for a breakdown of table 4. What they did is rolled up all these into an aggregate form. I'd like to understand the total rural potential for each of the categories for us. Either site and designated, application reviewed, draft approved, or registered. We're interested to see where we stand on that breakdown.
Thank you. Ms. Spose. Yeah, just, I'll receive it. Councillor Goya. Councillor Spose.
Yeah, I just asked for a breakdown of table 4. What they did is rolled up all these into an aggregate form. I'd like to understand the total rural potential for each of the categories for us. Either site and designated, application reviewed, draft approved, or registered. We're interested to see where we stand on that
So through Mr. Chair, we have reached out to the county for some support on answering those questions. They say they'll get back to us in a few days. So once we have them, we can inform.
Also, I saw in the questions from council, about the ARUs being 3 or is a fairly low number, and maybe Andrew can add some insight to this, but what I'm hearing at the county level is that, and this isn't picking on our building department at all, but the way ARUs have been reported was it varied from municipality to municipality. So maybe Andrew, you could, if you could, sorry to put you on the spot. I believe they're trying, or they've come closer to some standardized reporting or some methodology so that those numbers can be captured more accurately going forward.
Yeah, for you, Mr. Chair, we're working with the county, establishing a standard that we can report, and we're even looking at giving them access to our permit tracking software, so they have direct access to the data for ARUs.
So the numbers may be skewed, they may not be, but everybody's trying to capture them more accurately, and they're working with each building department to do that. So I don't even understand why they're reported differently, but that's, you know, my pay scale.
3 sounds pretty, 3 sounds low.
Yeah.
It does.
And I guess it depends on what the person puts on the application and. So. Okay. Anything further? No? Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Oh, big one. Close after, right? Okay, so 10.4. This is an ERO posting. Did you want to speak to it?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. So as is normal practice for the township, we include any ERO postings that impact properties within the township of Westland or legislation that impacts Westland. So this is a notice of the new aggregate that is proposed in the township. And our practice and the delegated authority that council has provided staff with is to submit an objection in principle to these types of proposals and licenses that come forward, just simply in general, because of the very, very tight timeline to actually provide adequate comments. So in this case, we have 60 days to provide our comments. As is common with new aggregate proposals, there is Planning Act applications that are also required in order to permit the use. And so we're looking at an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment. And just for the public's information, this ERO is not in relation to a Planning Act application. It's for the ARA, the Aggregate Resources Act license, which the township is a commented body. So the purpose of bringing this forward is for council's information, but also to advise council that staff are preparing an objection letter with some supporting materials prepared by our peer reviewers and technical experts that will form part of that objection. And that will be brought back to council for its consideration, as well as for council's or for the public's information, pardon me, at a May meeting. We're hoping for May 1st, but it could also be the later meeting in May, which I believe is the 22nd.
And the public, if they want to comment, they need to have the comments in on or before June 3rd, 2024.
That's correct. And through Mr. Chair, the township staff have proposed looking at a aggregate focused webpage on our website where maybe we can help direct the public to where this information is available and where they can comment, just because it can be challenging to navigate the provincial portals for this.
Okay, so we'll just receive this for information.
Receive for information, and I've just noted as well in the draft motion that council directs staff to provide the township objection letter to council for its consideration at a May meeting in order to meet the timeline to submit comments to the province.
Gonna move on, Councilor Spose, Councilor Bailey. Go ahead, Councilor Bailey.
Just a question, in the letter that you're compiling, will there be some of the non-compliance issues stated in there?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there may be a component. There is a provision in the ARA that requires operators to be in good standing with their existing licenses. I don't know how in depth we will get on those compliance issues, but it will likely be noted.
Okay, I know through a lot of social media things, when people are trying to, you know, appeal to certain groups or something, there's like a recommended, or there's a statement and they'll say, you know, here's a suggested comment that you can submit. If you want to add your name to it or add your, I don't know, if there's something, is there some way without being biased, providing sort of the residents with, if you're opposed to this, or if you don't like this, here's a statement, and make it easy for the public to submit comments to ERO. Sometimes it's overwhelming for them to go, what's an ERO? What am I supposed to be doing? If someone just says, I don't agree with something, or if we can kind of help guide them to, here's a statement that relates to our local issue. Just sign your name at the bottom and press send.
Well,
I don't know.
I've had inquiries on this already, and
Yeah.
I'm very cognizant of, I'm trying not to plant
Yeah,
perception on them, but possibly this web page, as long as they know our comments and where we have concerns, I feel that they could read those and make a decision for themselves, whether they support that position. But I sense you were in the same boat. You're like, I want to help people, but I don't want to speak for them,
yeah.
right? So maybe, you know, that's the key is the aggregate
Mhm.
website and it, maybe it's two components. It has the official submission, which will be probably quite wordy and deep, and then maybe it's some bullet points. So, and one, you know, past practice, so, you know, dirtying roads and, you know, or things of those natures that people,
People here actually can relate to. You know, sometimes they're not thinking the deep things, they're just knowing the road's dirty in front of me.
So what are your thoughts, Courtney? Like how,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything different to add to what you've commented on. I agree. I think we have to be a little bit cautious of our advocacy around this, but sharing information such as our objection letter with our technical comments, I think is the best way to put that information out there. I also think it's a great resource. This will eventually come to the public for a decision from this council through the Planning Act process. And so this is preceding that process, but there's going to be some overlap between what we look at through zoning and what we're commenting on through the area.
Right. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supportive. I think in terms of keeping the public careful, I think it's powerful to share evidence, facts that have been experienced in other situations and circumstances that lend themselves here. The municipality isn't an advocacy group, so we have to be very careful. There are advocacy groups out there that can do that. We need to be cognizant of the role that the municipality is in this dialogue. I'm supportive of voicing objections that are well articulated. And I think it's also important through the appropriate channels to educate the local residents of the opportunities to share feedback. We can put facts in at their discretion, but just gotta be careful about putting words in their mouth. They need to come up with that. That's just the fine line we need to play as a municipality.
Mr. Good?
Yeah, just, sort of a separate point, so the county is also going to be a commenting body on this ERO. Through the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, even though those are separate, it will be, I would assume, the same consultants that would be working through all of the technical reports for both the county and the township. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can prepare our comments or have our technical consultants assist us in preparing our comments and getting those comments to the county in a reasonable amount of time, so that in the hopes of both the county and the township submitting through the ERO comments that are A, consistent, and B, I guess maybe a little more substance to it than just to say we object. Is that possible to coordinate having our comments prepared in time for the counties also receive them and consider not necessarily endorsing them, but incorporating that into their comments?
At least review them.
Yeah.
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's excellent. Right, the town staff are working, we're in a really good place already to have that sort of comprehensive objection letter put together, and we'll be working directly with the county website so that we can be as aligned as we can be through this process, given that we're both commenting agencies and it's going to impact our Planning Act applications.
Can you speak to the peer reviewers? Because I don't want the perception to be that we're again putting words in the mouth of the county. We're both using the same reports to come to a conclusion. To continue to speak to
Yeah,
that.
so through Mr. Chair, with aggregate files, we use, there's sort of the 3 different applications that are made, one to the ministry directly, which is what we're looking at today, 2 Planning Act applications, one to the county, one to the township. And so for all 3 of those aspects, we use the same consultants, and they are the township consultants. And that's because it's the same application materials that are being submitted. So we utilize our hydrogeologist, ecology, traffic consultants, engineers, acoustical engineers. We have a roster of sort of folks that look at these very, very complex land use planning applications and ARA licenses. So it definitely makes the most sense, given that it's the same peer reviewers for the application to be aligned in our comments to the agency.
That was for the public, not for you. The public to hear. I knew you understood. I just wanted the public to hear, sorry.
Yeah, no.
This was,
Yeah, just piggyback on what Councilor Gore is saying. Is there any concern that the review by the county is not as extensive as ours is with respect to these various studies that the individual consultants we hired to do?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there may be different aspects of the policy framework that are being looked at from a upper tier perspective for an official plan amendment versus our local level review. But I would say that the township is holding the reins on the review, given that it is our technical experts that we have retained.
in the past, has the county, well, say, in the past, the county generally has not provided detailed comments on the objection. So,
And through Mr. Chair, neither has the township. So,
fair.
yes.
So we want
Okay, so it's important that we're both in step in terms of how we address this potential gravel pit moving forward.
now, the next planning meeting is for the county's second week of May, which is probably the 16th. Do you think staff can have that ready and put on the planning committee agenda?
Through Mr. Chair, I think that's really fair to work towards that for sure.
Maybe council should ask for that, and then I will drive that bus. at the planning committee. As part of the resolution for this, right? Sorry, Councilor Wilson.
No, that's not, I agree with them 100%. We should all be on the same page with this constantly give us how to step in that's dangerous position to be in.
As part of the submission, are we looking at past operational practices and what is the comments on that?
Through Mr. Chair, we will look at the ARA provision that states that operators have to be in good standing and in compliance.
But that good standing compliance means with the province or with us?
It's a good question. I think that in any event, we will raise our concerns.
Okay, because I hope we have photographic evidence of our roads from multiple area operators over a very lengthy time. And many objections and asked for, cleaning and hasn't transpired. I was hoping staff would be considering and submitting that as a component, so hopefully you can take that as a takeaway. Anyways, we also passed our, anyways, I'll leave it at that. I think, yeah. I think that's- Anything else from anybody? Do you have,
We're receiving it, the council directs staff to provide the township objection letter to council for its consideration at a May 2024 meeting. It'll have to be May 1st. May 1st.
Can I pause real quick? So the only thing is, I don't foresee this happening, but I mentioned to Courtney that they could submit the comments, but as long as we see them at some point, but I don't expect it to come after the June 3rd. But if something were to happen, I want staff to still submit the comments. What if you're waiting on final interpretation of something from a peer reviewer and it's not complete by the May, it was our last May meeting?
May 22nd.
Staff are still getting, well, then we'd know that. We'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. Okay, we're fine.
So it's that, we'll bring our objection letter for council's consideration at the May 1st meeting. And that council direct staff, should time permit, again, we're working towards that the township objection letter and supporting technical review be forwarded to the county planning committee for its May 16th, 2024.
Move it, please. Council, go ahead. Kick of the can. All in favor? Carried. Council reports. Courtney and I have booked the appointment with MTO in regards to Highway 6 South. Upgrade potential, whatever you want to call it. When we look at May 6th or 9th or something. May 6th. Did I update council on the MOF meeting with Ian Friedman and Kinda Hard and Diane Ross? Did I mention that already at our last meeting? No. You attended as well, right? So the ministry is apparently reviewing assessments across Ontario. They are prioritizing the area sector first in that process. And they wanted to meet with us to hear of some ideas to prevent this pendulum swing. So basically what we landed on is we said, create a separate tax class that similar to what they did to landfills down in Lambton County. And as long as they put the appropriate, I'm getting outside my pay grade here, put the appropriate ratio or percentage that the municipality can set, then we could blend in their taxes over years, but the concern is if they put too low of a ratio, it's still a discount. So, but the property tax class was the preferred method, because then that alleviates all the mapping of this is a berm and that's a pile and this is not disturbed and this is fully extracted, and come up with this crazy formula for each pit. That it would turn into a pit is a pit is a pit, and you have your tax class times X, this is what you pay. We also stated that if there's a desire of the province to provide some sort of tax relief, there are two opportunities. They can do it on the education component of the tax bill. That's 20% of your taxes. Then if they want to reimburse that. And Mr. DeHart spoke of the other one, which was something on the income tax side of things. Do you remember that one? My recollection is that there is a method through corporate taxes that you can get a rebate. So if they want to provide a subsidy to the industry, they can create a corporate tax rebate. The program, I don't know. Anyways, it is not just make up numbers out of thin air. It does not, create a similar situation where the farm tax credit, where the local municipality can only tax at 25% to support the urban centers. These are the things that we highlighted. We provided the documents from my FOI to the U of G for the royalties paid from Dufferin to show the ability of producer to pay. Anything else? It was good. It was high level individuals from MOF at the meeting, along with Kenda Hart and Courtney, and I thought it went well, and I believe they're gonna get back to us, so. What else? I think that's it. Good for me. Any questions? Oh, I will give another update. In form of a TAMO executive director, I received an email from Caledon that they tentatively supported it at 25K level. There is a caveat that the total funding reach 100,000. So we have Caledon in, we have Oro-Medonte in, Zora is almost in. They're just, I believe it's coming to their next council meeting for final approval. And then we're gonna have some discussions, I believe, the May 1st meeting. And that will put us darn close. Tatmo did hire or I guess it's hire, it's a contract with an individual that's retiring, a CAO. And he is going to be starting soon, I believe. I don't want to say the name because I don't know if it's been released in the local municipality. The local municipality knew he was retiring. They're aware that we were looking at working with him, but just don't know if it's been officially released. But that's great news. So Ken DeHart and this individual are just working through the details of the contract. So that should be in place, by August, which is great, especially with CAO's type experience. I think that's going to be a huge asset to building our membership at TAMO and thus supporting the executive director position, and also our advocacy at, staff to staff level at the ministry. I'm really excited, and so is this individual. They actually cold called me and mentioned they were retiring, and they come from a large agri-producing municipality. They're excited to take it on and build TAMO, so excellent news.
Good.
Yeah, that's it. So,
Question, Mr. Chair. We're talking about membership of all these municipalities. Have we approached the county to also contribute?
they do. They actually pay their fees. I go, do you mean county member municipalities or the county?
The county itself.
They do pay.
Okay, I'm talking about contribution to this particular individual.
So I'll be honest, I do not ask more of the county because of the support they already provide. And we have Kim Force, the clerk, Ken DeHart and his team on the finance side of things. Plus they pay their membership dues. I felt that their contribution was paid. So I've been.
I don't know, Mayor, if you sit on there, you have our staff heavily involved type of thing. I think we're
So
disproportionate. You look at the amount of money they gain, the amount of money we gain. I think that's a little bit disproportionate in terms of what we contribute.
they also paid a ton of money to fight the ARB decision. We can talk about that offline.
Okay.
So right now, I think we're in good shape that it's not needed. We did pick up 2 upper tier municipalities paid, thanks to the help from Councillor Lean up in Oro. I believe his upper tier joined. So because we're growing somewhere else, again, I've been kind of leaving them alone. Now, with the ED coming online, I tried to talk her out of this. Ms. White Fox has expressed an interest in being more involved on the TAPMO side of things, and I only agreed because the executive director was coming online. I knew she's workaholic and she would have done fine, but I was like, you do enough. But because she's gonna have support through the ED, I was like, okay, I think it's also good. It's good for everyone. So, but with the membership growing and Don doing his thing and the support we get from the county on, they're going to appeal. Can I talk about that? The other properties, or should I not? I'm probably not. They're always advocating for
Okay. fair enough.
more,
Okay. I'll back off.
It's a good thing I got watchdogs and excited. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. All right, so we'll receive that. Do we vote on my update, or do they do those two together? Any council member updates?
Yeah. Yep, no, the only one I was gonna say for updates, at Conservation Halton, we've had delegations from the CEO there, Hassan Bassett. He is now going to be the new City of Burlington CAO. So he is leaving Conservation Halton. So I understand his posting's been posted. We don't know who's gonna fill in, but that's been a big deal down at Conservation Halton. I think he'll do a, fantastic job at City of Burlington, but, anyway, so we had a big goodbye kind of thing for him last week. Sorry.
Excellent.
I never really know if it's a council report or an announcement. Just wanted to make council aware and the public aware that, on April 15th, the engagement survey of the recreation committee has been working on launches on Engage with Lunch. And we're also planning to do, the opportunity for people to fill out written surveys at the Fish Fry, the Optimus Club Fish Fry, which is May the 9th, I believe. But mostly just if you're out in the community talking to people, just encourage them to go online, and if they have time on the Engage with Lunch to complete that survey. The more info we have, the better, and fun we can help the community.
Can we remind the youth advisory members about that fish fry? Because I think a few of them said they would help do the surveys. But we didn't talk about that last night, and I bet you a lot of them, I don't know who was on the list for that, but. Thank you.
I remember something else. Mr. Fowler, myself, and members of the Agricultural Society met at the PCC grounds, discussed fall fair. And the facility is looking amazing. Paths and pergolas or pavilions, whatever they are. Really excited. So Mr. Fowler was supportive generally of what the Agricultural Society was pitching. They, we went back and forth, maybe moved a few tents around this and that. Sounds as though the antique tractor pull is going to return this Friday night. There's going to be some likely different events held, but I believe we decided we didn't need to meet on the 4th. Was there another meeting on the 14th? We're still gonna meet? Okay. But one thing I'd like to have discussed at that meeting is that the Ag Society provide the programming so that we can start pushing it out through all our channels that we utilize so well here.
So it's a big thing.
Right, because I don't want to do the ATV poll and things like that, and generally doesn't get advertised well, so we can do our part of that, to bring it up meeting. But I'm very excited for utilizing that facility, and it's gonna look awesome. It already looks awesome. So I really want.
Go ahead.
Just wondered, are we planning some sort of grand opening of PCC grounds or any sort of celebration? Come walk the trail, come see, I don't know, have a big cake. Food draws people in, but just something to showcase all the work and, yeah, grand opening.
So through Mr. Chair, I believe we have some requirements under our grant, that we have to do, certain, similar to what we did with Warren Park, to recognize the Trillium Foundation grant. So we can take a look at what those requirements are and, turn it into something a little bit more.
Pick a nice day ahead of time.
Yeah, This is with respect to the Coastal Sharp Speed Internet Committee and meetings we've had with staff and 8 other players. First of all, Andrew Good is our new chair of the Coastal Sharp Speed Internet Committee. With staff, we had some good meetings with Standard Broadband, as you know, is the internet provider doing work in the east part of the township. We had a meeting about 6 weeks ago, and we agreed to meet every 6 weeks just to make sure we're on progress on terms of schedule. If there's any hiccups, we all know about that. We also had a good meeting with Rogers. They provided us updated map, and they provided us with a program which really drills down to the actual household is going to be getting service. And what they did say, that the provincial map, which identifies which areas are being served by the grant program, is sacrosanct. So they're not deviating anything from that. They're not willing to deviate from that. Then we had a good meeting with SWIFT. Take our hats off to Justine to arrange that meeting. The county tried for 3 weeks. She got it set up in 1 week type of thing. So it tells you.
Don't mention Justine.
Our Justine, yes, exactly right. So they had a good meeting. Basically, they said if you got 50-10 service, you're not eligible. You got 50-10 or better, you're not eligible, but they are willing to accept gapping information. So staff and the internet committee have to meet in terms of who's going to collect what data and how's it going to be collected. They also agreed that this is the county was there too, that we deal directly with SWIFT, which is a big kid. We send our stuff directly to SWIFT. We don't have to go to the county to them, which was a big win for us. I think they were personally, I thought they were relieved that they didn't have to get involved with this sort of thing. And they all agreed that we seems to be so far ahead of everybody else in the county. You guys go ahead, submit your stuff, and whatever you learn, we'll try to apply to the rest of the municipality. So we're starting to the gap collecting mode. And I understand where we have the gaps. I know, for instance, Sarah has a gap in her area. We have to identify that. And I pass it from the township to SWIFT. They got their own experts. They're going to apply to make sure that it is in fact true. There is a gap there type of thing. They did say there's some funding limitations, but we don't try, we're not going to get anywhere. SWIFT will have an official mandate to that effect announced sometime in June. Right now, it's sort of unofficial. So right now, what we're trying to do is develop a form that we can use quickly. Once they have the official mandate, they're going to send in their official form. So I don't know how easy those forms would be, but right now, this is just to get our gap information as soon as possible in. So that's going to be the next effort, committee and the township trying to get this sorted out as quickly as possible.
So what I'm hearing is that, you know, if a independent provider stated they were going to build out 50-10 in an area, and that excluded the provincial mapping from covering it. The provincial mapping is not changing. It's not going to go into areas that the independents flagged as future service.
Well, what the SWIFT also said was, if you get a sense that your internet provider is not going to provide certain areas, provide information to us as a gap. So they said the intent is to try to fill the gaps in by then 25, but they also will recognize it's been a long and tedious process to get where we are now in terms of getting service to everybody, all kinds of delays. And he said we'll accept gapping information as long as the funds are available, even as late as December of 2025. So we'll have to keep tabs on all these independent providers to make sure that they're keeping the schedule. If any hiccup starts arising, bang, we gotta.
Can you at your next meeting with Standard, bring up the fact that they identified expansions have not completed that work? And get some idea of if they're going to complete it?
We met with them. They basically said June was a magic date, and we have to meet with them again and say, is it still June, the magic date?
Magic date for what?
When they're gonna be.
Cause they don't even have equipment and.
Yeah, I know that, and that's a concern that we have, all along that we have from Stantibog, and that's why I think, fact that staff is, arranging these meetings on a regular
I would like to
basis.
be at that next one. Please, I mean to invite, watch out.
Well, you gotta treat them nice.
I do, I treat everybody nice. Right. That's the right answer.
That's all I have.
Well, thank you, Councilor Phillips, that was excellent information. Councilors?
In 15 seconds or less, Councillor Bulmer at the county told me that May the 4th, Saturday, May 4th will be the community ditch clean.
Yes.
Do we all have to wear Star Wars stuff?
May
May
the
the
fourth.
fourth be
That's
with
what I said to him. I'm like, and I got a chuckle. So just FYI for a community aspect.
Excellent. So when the phone calls and emails come in, why is there black garbage bags all over this road? It always happens.
Star
Bunch of
Wars
cleanup
Day.
All right, anything else from other councilors? Okay, all in favor for receiving those? Councilor Bailey and Councilor Spillier, community second. We were all in favor.
You don't have to pay anything.
All right, bylaws. Soapbox.
Yeah. That the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-032 being bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing of funds to meet current expenditures of the corporation of the township of Plymouth during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Bylaw 2024-0, sorry, just to make sure I get the right bylaw number there. Bylaw 6001-24 being the township's noise bylaw to prohibit and otherwise control noise in the township of Plymouth and to repeal bylaw 5001-05.
All right, can you move by Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey, all in favor? Carried. Announcements.
I have one announcement. This year's bike rodeo is gonna be happening here at the township parking lot, and we'll be using the fire hall as well. Will be May 11th. And it's from 9 till 12, and this year we're going to have the Optimus providing hot dogs for the end of it. So we should be seeing that in the Pioneer. And local students should be getting sort of a coloring sheet going home. We're trying to really try to promote it different ways this year and get our numbers up a bit. So be there.
Yeah.
Bring your kids.
Any other announcements? The resolution for those. All right, I believe next we're in a closed session.
The council shall go into closed session under section 239 of the municipal act for the purpose of a confidential report prepared by staff regarding personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and this is relating to the senior of the year nominations. Then we have confidential minutes from a number of previous closed meetings that were in the agenda. And we also have a confidential verbal report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. That's in relation to a potential OLT appeal.
Can you move for that, please? Councilor Hurst, Councilor Goida, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll go back to this white box. Yes, resolutions coming out of closed.
The council moves into open session at 2:33 PM.
And number, please, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, all in favor?
And the council receives a confidential report prepared by staff regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. This is the senior of the year nominations, the confidential minutes from the various previous closed meetings as noted in the agenda. And the confidential verbal report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. That's in relation to a potential OLT appeal, and that staff proceed as directed.
Can you move for that, please? Councilor Bailey and Councilor Goida, all in favor? Looks carried. Any business arising in closed session? You know some motion. Any new business? Permitory bylaw, please.
Following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-034 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Clifton should its meeting held on the 10th day of April 2024.
Gonna move it, please. Counselor Hurst, Counselor Bailey, all in favor? And adjournment at 2:34 PM. We have minutes for that. Counselor Hurst, Counselor Spillis, all in favor? Carried. Counselor Ryan?